getting these alerts on our phone. We're like, what word is that? And everybody's like, oh yeah, it's like a dust storm thing. Apparently it happens.
Yeah, it's not a haboob.
It's not?
No, it's not boob. It's not, boob is not in it. But it's close. Yeah, welcome to the Endurance Studio podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Turner. I'm an avid ultra-endurance cyclist, bikepacker, and runner, and I'm on a journey to learn and share everything I can about how people can push beyond their limits. This podcast will explore all aspects of endurance through conversations with people I find unique and interesting. There's always an amazing story of accomplishment and failure, and always something to learn. I run this podcast from an off-grid mobile studio I've created so I can travel to the guests and have authentic, in-person conversations, because I believe in the importance and power of face-to-face conversations. This costs money to run, and you can support this podcast by becoming a sustaining member, liking, subscribing, commenting, and most importantly, sharing with your friends and family. If you're interested in advertising on the podcast, please contact me at theendurancestudio@gmail.com. Thank you for watching and listening. Before we jump into the podcast, I want to mention a few companies that make products that I just think are incredible and I can't stop talking about. The first one is Squirrel's Nut Butter. I did a podcast with Chris Thornley, the co-founder. It was incredible to learn more about the company and his background. So they make all kinds of different lubes for chafing and when running and bikepacking. So go check them out, squirrelsnutbutter.com. I do have a promo code. It's TimberFriends, 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 for 10% off, and squirrelsnutbutter.com. And the other company is also here in Flagstaff. It's Catula. They make gaiters and running traction. And I've recently discovered how incredible the running traction is, and I've been using the gaiters for a really long time. And they're just really great people, amazing company, and they're always making better and better products. So go check them out, catula.com. And the last one is Dispersed Bikepacking Gear. This is Katie and Andrew Stremke. They make their own bags, bikepacking bags, and they just make incredible stuff. They're both super accomplished bikepackers. And Andrew has completed the Triple Crown. That's the Colorado Trail Race, Arizona Trail Race, and Tour Divide, all in 1 year, all on a single speed. So I'm going to buy my bags from a person who has gone through the bikepacking gauntlet if I'm going to buy bikepacking bags. So go check them out, dispersed.bike. And last thing before we jump into the podcast, I want to let you know a couple new ways that you can financially support this podcast. It is very expensive to run this and to travel to the guests so that I can have in-person, face-to-face conversations. But it's really amazing to capture these so far, and I want to keep this going. So there's a couple ways you can support. In addition to liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends, you can become a member on the YouTube channel. It's $2.99 a month. You'll get loyalty badges next to your name in comments and live chats. You'll get early access to new videos. You'll get member shoutouts, and you'll get priority reply to comments. So becoming a recurring member would just be incredible to help support this podcast. And then the other way, if you don't want to sign up for the recurring monthly subscription, you can also on YouTube, you can make a one-time donation using a super sticker. Small amount or large amount, anything is really amazing to help keeping this ship sailing. So appreciate it. I appreciate all in advance for everyone who has supported. And yeah, thanks for watching and listening. And let's jump into the podcast. Today's guest is an avid cyclist, runner, and one of the most positive influences in my life. From the day I met him, he's been an enthusiastic energy and has added great value to my life. He's a bikepacker and will be participating in his first Grand Depart this year on the 2024 Pinyons and Pines bikepacking race. I'd like to welcome to the podcast my friend, Tyler Hughes. Happy Earth Day!
Earth Day, man. Mother Earth. Cheers.
Mother Earth.
Cheers to Earth.
And we are in the Schultz parking lot in Flagstaff.
Yeah, famously known as the Y.
The Y. And we're hoping that the tent doesn't blow over.
Hopefully not.
Or I'm hoping.
Yeah, it's Flagstaff is pretty consistent in this time of year with the wind.
Yeah. Yep. So, but hey, we got to test this. I got to test this.
Yep.
I figured we could have gone back to my house and done it, but I figured let's give it a try here and see how it goes. Cause at some point I'm probably going to be in this situation somewhere on a trail somewhere with no other choice.
Yes.
So we'll see if it holds up.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I remember I was young and a dust devil came through our house, and we had like a camper shell that was up on like blocks or something in our backyard, and that thing literally lifted it up, took it over the fence, and deposited it in the neighbor's yard.
Holy
like the movie Twister.
Smokes, dude. That was down near Tucson?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So we went out the next day and it was like in the neighbor's yard, and we were all trying to figure out how that happened. Yeah. Maybe it was a prank.
Oh man.
I don't know if anybody actually saw it happen.
Wow.
But this was the story.
I would imagine wind absolutely rips down there. I've never been to Tucson, but
Yeah.
I would imagine just down there in the open land, it just gets insane.
Yeah, well, these dust devils are like mini tornadoes.
Yeah.
It just little like the movie Twister.
Yeah.
Like picking the cows up, it just like picked up this camper shell and then deposited it.
Yeah. What's the name for the big dust storms that get going, like the big ones?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a
haboob,
something like
habib.
that. Something
Yeah.
like that. I was in downtown Phoenix a couple years ago with my dad, and we were getting like warnings on our phone, and it was like 115 degrees, and that's normal for some people, but I'm from California originally, so we were both like, what is this? It's like 6 p.m. We're getting these alerts on our phone. We're like, what word is that? And everybody's like, oh yeah, it's like a dust storm thing. Apparently it happens.
Yeah, it's not a haboob.
It's not?
No, it's not boob. It's not, boob is not in it. But it's close. Yeah, it's close because it happens all the time in the Middle East.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's what the word is from. I'm like wanting to look it up so bad.
Me too. I'm not going to touch my phone.
I need a producer over there in the next
Hey,
tent.
Jamie, look that up.
Yeah. I thought about that with this. Like, what if I had a second tent next to this tent with like a producer sitting?
That'd be
on it
awesome.
that could just like Google stuff for us.
Jess could do it.
Yeah.
That'd be super cool. I get why they have that.
Yeah, because it'd be nice to know
right
what
now.
the exact
Boom.
word is, right? It's slipping my mind, but my brain's a little cooked.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But
and why is it cooked, Dylan?
it's because I just got off the Verde Valley Randonnée, and it was a 22 and a half hour effort, 250 miles, mixed gravel route. Check out the episode on the Verde Valley Randonnée if you haven't seen it with Dana. Just finished that up on last weekend, and I'm cooked. My brain is cooked. My body's cooked. I'm sure I'll have like 10 text messages from Dana when we get done with this. It's just like updates on his swollenness.
Oh, jeez, man. I mean, you guys both, I was watching the dots, and how many hours passed? When was that? When did you do that?
How
less than 48 hours ago, right?
Yeah, I got in at 4 a.m. yesterday morning.
Okay, yeah.
So, and I
Super
slept
fresh.
a little bit yesterday, and then I had a good night's sleep last night, and then kind of struggled through the day at work today.
Yeah, I bet.
I almost deferred this a week, but I was like, let's do it. Let's just do it.
You don't have to have all the brain cells firing to interview me. But I was watching both of your guys' dots, and I was just... So the record was before set by... Who set the record?
Dana and Jacob.
It was Dana and Jacob.
Yeah, and they rode together. That was the first time they did it, and it was super cold, like 20 degrees. And they spent a lot of time lingering around, trying to get warm in places. And Dana, like, said to me, I think he might have said it on the podcast. He said, I wonder if one of these fast guys could come in here and do it under like 20 hours.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and does it.
Fast forward,
Dude.
and Dana set a time of 19 hours and change.
Yeah.
Right?
Like 1920 or something like that.
Yeah, something crazy. And Dylan did it in under 24. You did it in what, 22?
22 and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is both of those times are faster than the previous record, correct?
Right. I was hoping to get the record, and then Dana was 2.5 hours ahead of me.
Yeah.
With it.
That's insane. Well, if Dana wasn't on the rampage tear that he was on, obviously you would have had the record by 2 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to sort of ask because I actually was doing a running race with my girlfriend the morning that you guys started, or else I probably would have tried my hand at the VVR, not setting any crazy times like you two, but just doing it. So by the time I started watching the dot was probably around midday. You guys were both sort of, I think, climbing towards Jerome at that point. And I was pretty shocked to see where Dana was compared to where you were.
Yeah.
How was that mentally? Like, I don't know. How do you do, like, were you planning on riding it together or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I made that really clear. That stresses me the fuck out.
I get that. Me too. Me too.
Like,
trying to keep up with somebody.
Yeah. Like, and I know Dana's incrementally faster than me.
Yeah.
He's like 15 to 20% faster than me. Everything we've ever done. Iceland, he was just like a little bit faster than me. We've done a couple of like 10-hour races, and he's like an hour and a half ahead of me. So he's just, you know, and I'm getting better, and I was always like chasing him, but he's always getting a little better too. And so we're kind of scaling at the same pace. Yeah. So at the beginning I was like, he asked that. Dana asked like, hey, you want to ride together? You know, as a nice friend would. And I'm like, nope, like I don't want to burden you, but also I don't want to burden myself with like getting all wrapped up in trying to keep up. Right. Because that kills my whole vibe more than anything.
Totally. We've talked about it on rides past. I think both of us have that especially when you're on like just a normal ride and you're struggling to keep up. It's kind of, it can get to you, but especially when you're out there doing an effort.
Yeah.
So it was good that guideline was set sort of right off the bat.
Yeah.
So you weren't tripping. He wasn't tripping.
No, yeah. And I went out fast and I was in first for like an hour and a half. And I was like, yeah, all right, I'll just enjoy this for a second. Cause I knew he was, Dana can't, he doesn't, he's expressed this before on pods and stuff publicly. Like he doesn't like to be in front of people, but he doesn't like to be behind people either. Like he doesn't mind being in front of people, but he hates being behind people.
Yep. Yeah.
So I was out in front for just a short period of time, and I was just going off my heart rate. That was my plan, was like keep my heart rate at 150 or below. Yep. Especially at the beginning, because I have a tendency to go out, you know, the adrenaline, everybody has a tendency to kind of go out faster than they should be.
Absolutely.
And it, you know, a lot of people crack after that because of that. So I was like, I'm just going to go out 150, but I had a gravel bike and it was a little faster on the initial climbs. And a few other people started with us, and Dana was talking with them. It was Mike Farrell and PETA. Okay. You know, the guy that had the pretty catastrophic bike crash on Lake Mary with his fork like blew out.
Oh, whoa.
Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah, he was like, I don't know the full story, but he was riding and his fork failed.
Oh, wow.
Going fast.
Road bike?
I'm not sure what it was.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to talk to him very much,
that
but yeah,
scary.
but he was looking, and I think it was a few months ago maybe. I'm not 100% clear on it, but I know it was a pretty rough sounding crash, and he was out there doing it, starting it. Him and Mike were headed to Williams. They were going to do a day ride and just kind of ride with us.
Sweet.
Or kind of ride the route, part of the route, and then hit Williams and then head back from there. And nice. So I was out in front for a little while, and then Dana caught me, and I was like, hey, you know, finally.
Yeah. So I was thinking, and you guys even talked about it on the VVR, that we were thinking based on the bike setup, he may catch you on Stoneman Lake Road.
Man
Lake. Or Stoneman Lake, however you want to say it.
Yeah, I mean, he was going off of power.
Okay.
So his plan was based on calories and power, and because he's got a power meter on his bike. And so he was like, I'm not trying to catch you. I just was doing what is the prescribed power.
Yeah.
And he caught me, and then he just stayed ahead. But back to the Perkinsville thing. So we get to Williams. I'm on track. I have a time schedule. I'm like, literally, I came into Williams 2 minutes after I was supposed to come in based on my calculations. Like,
wow.
I was hitting all of my planned spots, and it's the third time I've done it. So I should have this like figured out pretty well by now. It's not like it was a novel thing, you know, like I looked at last year's track and predicted based on the other factors. And so hit Williams, flew down to Perkinsville Road, hit the Verde, got water, and then started to ascend Perkinsville Road. Dude, and that's when it got catastrophic feeling.
Like, in what way?
Like all the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that I've been eating to that point, like 2.5 of them, were just like a rock in my stomach, and it got hot.
No.
And I was just nauseous for like 6 hours.
Oh no.
Yeah. Like pulling over, trying to throw up, couldn't really throw up. It just kind of was like heartburn. Sitting there for a second in the shade, getting back, pedaling for another hour, getting back off the bike, trying to vomit. Like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times.
Did anything ever come up?
No, it was just heartburn.
Unsuccessful vomiting attempts.
But it was like the food, I could feel the food in my stomach. And it just like wasn't moving along, turning into energy, you know, like when you're feeling like decent, where you've started to process and you're turning that food into calories and then into energy and stuff. There's like a feeling to it, you know?
Yeah.
When you're kind of in this like homeostasis in your body and you're kind of in this zone. And I was like not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so basically stopped eating after like 1 o'clock, and didn't eat until got some sodas in Camp Verde. Oh, and there was something else that happened.
I'm going to talk more about the nutrition thing.
Okay.
Because I wanted to ask about how much tailwind were you bringing in during the time that you couldn't eat, and do you think that was sort of what was keeping you going, was those calories, or did you not even want a stomach tailwind? You just wanted pure water? Or?
Yeah, the tailwind was okay. I kind of went into this race trying something new where I kind of scaled down on my tailwind and I tried to scale up on real food. And part of that's because the tailwind only strategy is not like sustainable for long races that are over like 3 days.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that, you know, with Pinyons and Pines coming up.
Right.
How do you do that? And sounds like if you haven't figured it out, it's probably not possible.
Well, like it's a crutch if you're surviving, you know, if you're building your whole race bike, like self-supported bikepacking race strategy off of relying on tailwind, that's a crutch.
Yeah.
Because you can't resupply with it very easily.
Right.
And I did a solo nutrition episode that I haven't put out yet, and I talked about this a little bit because I kind of had like my honeymoon period with tailwind.
Yeah.
Like I was all hyped on it, and it was like this is magic. It's like endurance cocaine.
Yeah.
You know? It's like the best thing ever. And then I did Pinyons and Pines last year, the 500 that was 5 days, and I was like, how am I going to carry 5 days worth of tailwind?
Right.
You're just not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's if you're talking like 1,000 to 1,500 calories a day, like there's no way it doesn't. There's a point of diminishing returns where you're carrying too much powder, and it's too heavy, and it's not giving you what you need.
Absolutely.
So then the trick is how do you find things that you can digest on trail that you can buy at grocery stores and gas stations?
Yeah.
That serve the same purpose. Right.
Yep, absolutely. So you kind of experimented with that on this.
And it was a tactical error.
Because your stomach did what it did, and then you didn't really have anything. Whoa, we're getting close to a full blow over here. Totally get it.
And we're back.
We're back.
Sorry about that.
Mother Nature on Earth Day, huh?
We almost lost the camera. We almost lost the tent, but it all held. So testing completed, right?
Totally. Yeah. Testing completed.
It blew the whole tent back a little bit, but we survived. And it is a haboob, we confirmed.
Yes. I did look that up.
So there's boob in the name.
There is 100% boob in that name.
Okay. All right, then. Glad we cleared that situation up. We had a break for that.
Yeah.
Where were we?
We were talking nutrition. We were talking the difficulty of carrying 5 days worth of tailwind, and how you were experimenting with not as much tailwind this time.
Right. And it didn't work really well, but I think it's because I just brought the wrong food. I think I should stick with the old, like if I could do it again, I would do pizza and Hostess. So like sugary stuff and carbs that I know digest well, even in the heat. Because I've been in the heat before with pizza and been okay. But I don't know, dude. So I think it was the peanut butter.
Really?
Just like didn't work for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. and it was like a rock. Oh, and then so as I'm going up this climb, right, like hot, irpy, nauseous, miserable, there's like a lot of traffic, a fair amount of traffic and some side by sides and trucks and stuff. And then there's this like gang of rambunctious motorcycle and quad people.
Oh, geez.
And there was like 10 dudes, and they were all like, some were like teenage age, and they were all like ripping around, no helmets, super reckless, like just kind of looking for trouble kind of dudes. You know what I mean?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And I heard them coming behind me because they were just like loud, and it was like
dirt road at this point.
Yeah, it was a dirt road.
Okay.
Yeah, so they were
it's
on
not like Hell's Angels Harleys. It's like dirt bikes and stuff.
It's like the dirt equivalent of that, right?
Geez,
where you like hear them coming, and you're like
dirt bike Hell's Angels.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll just get out of the way, and they come ripping by, and they're like kind of spread out, and a couple of them in the middle of the pack like get in front of me, and they're like on these like racing quads, like not utility quads. They're like on the old school like fast racing looking quads.
Yeah.
Kawasaki, and and they get out in front of me, and they're just like ripping fishtails and stuff, and like shooting rocks up at me, and like being complete douchebags, right? And like all this dust and everything, and I'm just like, bleh, bleh, like trying not to vomit, right?
Man.
So in my mind, I'm just like thinking the most evil thoughts one can think, right?
Yeah.
Like just frustrated and upset, and just evil thoughts. And finally, these guys, I'm not going to go into too much
just
detail.
leave it at that.
Yeah. Finally, these guys take off, and I kind of see them like off in the distance, because this road, like you can see it as it climbs, right? And there's all these false summits, and they get around and start to drop into Jerome, and I finally climb up and around and get through like the second false summit and start descending down into Jerome. And I look up ahead, and they're all like off in the distance, like all in the middle of the road, just all off of their motorcycles and quads standing there, right? And my first thought is like, uh-oh.
It's on.
like I'm done. I better turn around.
Yeah.
Like 8 dudes.
Oh, man.
Right?
In the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Nobody around.
Right. And as I get closer, I see that one of them is off on the ground. And he's like holding his shoulder like this, and all covered in dirt and everything on the side of his face, and his quad's like tipped over. So he had done some dipshit moves and instant karma'd himself.
I was going to say, man, karma. It's real.
Yeah.
I'm a believer.
And
it's fun when you can see it.
It was like, I feel guilty saying it now and like a horrible person, but at the time it was like the boost that I needed.
Totally. Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this jerk just got what he like deserved from screwing around, being an idiot. I'm glad he didn't hurt himself worse. It seemed like it was just a shoulder injury, but like,
Yeah. I mean, anybody who's kicking up dust on purpose for somebody who's running or cycling on a road, like if anybody's been in that scenario, you know how nasty it is when you're huffing and puffing and you're breathing in dust.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you're doing that on purpose, karma's hopefully going to get you.
Yeah.
And hopefully he's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Like I was like, I almost, when I rode by him, I was like, ha, you assholes. But then I like knew I would have gotten beaten up,
You would have been right on the ground with him.
Yeah. They would have totally chased, because a couple of them were still like laughing at their friend. Like they were like laughing at this guy getting injured.
Real salt of the earth people.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, dude. And I was just like, all right, well, that was a little bit redeeming. Let's just get into Jerome, and let me get serious and focus on how I'm not going to bail out at this point, how I'm going to continue to get the right amount of calories that I need, because I knew I was like 6 hours behind on food. Right. So I just went to the nearest like convenient. I just started asking people in town if they knew where I could buy sodas. Because I don't know, there's like no convenience store in Jerome.
Right.
There's no like Circle K or anything.
I don't think there's anything that's known like or franchised or branded in Jerome.
Right.
Really. It's just like very mom and pop.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't even know. I mean, I would think maybe try to find like a liquor store or something. I'm sure there's one of those in Jerome that might be able to have like a. Did you find something?
Yeah. So I asked some random people, and first couple people didn't really know. They were new. And then some guy overheard me asking and said, "Oh, I have the ice cream store right there. We have sodas in the ice cream store." So I went there, and there were 2 bikepacking bikes outside.
Oh, cool.
And I walked in, and it's a very small store, and there were two dudes bikepacking that were getting ice cream. And I was like, "Hey, fellow bikepackers."
That's rad.
traveling souls. Yeah, and they were doing a modification of the Coco 250 loop.
Oh, cool.
And instead of going up to Mingus Mountain and back, they ended up, I think they were parked somewhere near Jerome. And I think they were at the very end of their route. So they did like the Perkinsville part early on, and then did the Flagstaff section of the Coco 250 and looped back around through Sedona. And they had been in Sedona that morning and then had gone Lime Kiln in through Cottonwood and then up to Jerome from there.
Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good route.
Yeah. Yeah. The Mingus part, cutting out the Mingus part on Coco 250 is definitely not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But anyway, so talked with them for a bit, hammered a couple sodas, because sodas are like 300 calories each.
Yeah.
Like for a small bottle of soda.
Yeah.
And I've heard like Marone Golfman on the CTR. I heard I didn't listen to the pod, but apparently he like lived on soda.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I'm not a soda drinker, never really have been much of a soda drinker, but, man, it really hits the spot when you're in the middle of a long day or at the end of a long day.
Yeah.
Something about it. So you nailed down a couple sodas.
Yeah.
What
orange
was your
sodas.
Orange sodas? I was going to ask,
Yeah.
what was your soda of choice?
Orange. Most amount of calories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I had 1 orange, 1 Coke, and then I didn't buy ice cream. I should have gotten ice cream, but I didn't.
That's
I don't know why.
shocking for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. I just wasn't feeling
Because your stomach was still in.
Yeah, I wasn't. It was like just liquid. Let's just drink liquid.
Yeah.
And then that kind of brought like the quad thing, and then meeting the 2 other bikepackers kind of like psychologically brought me out of the funk a little bit, you know?
Yep.
And then I continued on to Camp Verde, and then I got more soda in Camp Verde and was able to eat some more food there.
And it was getting close to dark by the time you were in Camp Verde, right?
Camp Verde's sun was going down.
Yeah.
Like I had a 30-minute break. That was the only planned break of the whole route. I took 30 minutes in Camp Verde to just like sit, and I had an ice cream sandwich and bought another 2,000 calories to try and get me through the balance of the course, and then got some more sodas and then carried on into the night.
Yeah. So during that tough time on Perkinsville Road, when your stomach was really screwed up, were you fighting off any thoughts of bailing, or were you fully committed the whole time?
Oh, I was fighting off bailing thoughts for sure, dude.
Yeah, I bet.
Like when you're feeling like you're going to vomit every 15 minutes.
Man, yeah, that's
it
tough.
I was literally, remember I was telling you the other day, like chunking?
Yep.
Like chunking. Like I had to practice what I was preaching, because I was like, it wasn't even about like getting to Jerome. It was about getting through the next like 10 minutes.
Wow.
Cause I was like, when you're ready to puke, it's miserable.
Right? It's the worst feeling.
Yeah. And it would kind of dissipate as I would like sit down, and then I'd get back into the heat. And something about the heat and that time of day is just the worst spot for me. But there were 2 spots that basically you're like have to fight through a bail moment on this particular course. The first one for me was Perkinsville Road, right? Because you get to Jerome and you're just like totally cooked.
Yeah.
And you can bail out in Jerome.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, and you're like, this is kind of a cool little oasis in the middle of a mountain that I could kind of just hang out and go to Haunted Hamburger and wait for a ride.
Yes. And Camp Verde, surprisingly, even though it's the most accessible, it's the least attractive spot for me to bail out from for some reason. I've never felt like bailing out there. I don't know why. The second spot is when you after Stoneman Lake Road, after you hit Lake Mary.
Oh yeah.
At the very end.
Yeah. So when you're getting off the dirt, turning left to head north on Lake Mary when you hit the pavement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Something about
you hit Mormon Lake, and then you can either go straight
Yeah.
and be back home in 2 hours off course.
Yep.
Or you have another 5 hours of gravel riding after Mormon Lake till you get back to Flag.
Which is, at that point, after Mormon Lake, it takes you onto, we've done that road, right?
Yeah. I don't know the road number, but it takes you behind Lake Mary.
Okay. It's like Weimer,
Weimer Spring Road.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay. And that basically just takes you, it basically mimics Lake Mary Road, right?
Yeah, like
and
parallels it, yeah.
And then kind of spits you out on Lake Mary at the mailboxes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's like a psychological commitment.
Totally.
Right, when you're that deep in. Plus my feet were numb and frozen after Stoneman Lake.
Yeah, how'd that happen? They didn't get wet?
No, it was just cold.
It was cold.
And I think like all your blood leaves at that point in something like that. You're 20 hours in.
Yeah.
Like all the blood leaves your extremities.
Yeah.
And I had gloves. I brought gloves, like an extra pair of gloves, and my hands were fine. And I just was like, my feet will be fine. I have good circulation.
Yeah.
Nah.
Not the case.
No, dude.
Were you wearing merino socks by chance?
Yeah. They were darn toughs. I don't know. I think they were merino wool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been wearing merinos like exclusively on longer days, running or riding. And man, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't tested it with extreme cold or anything, but
yeah, I mean, it was in the it was in the high 30s, I think.
Okay, yeah, it's chilly.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, your body's kind of in a weird state of flux after 20 hours on the bike and going from hot, your stomach wasn't right. Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
And you're going like 12 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So there's a wind chill factor too.
Right.
You pop out on Lake Mary Road after you've climbed 3,000 feet, right? You've been climbing for 6 hours in that kind of like medium sweaty kind of zone. And you pop out on Lake Mary Road and you start cruising 15 to 18 miles per hour. And all that just turns into ice. You know, it just feels like it's turning into ice on your body.
Absolutely.
And I didn't have leggings on either. I was wearing just like bib shorts. And which I was like, I'll be fine when I started because I gauged the end off of the start, which was probably a mistake. But
yeah.
So that wasn't the end of the world. That was just like a commitment. So
right. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Well, you crushed it.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Hey, how you doing?
We just had a flyby. Buzzed the tower. Wow. Interesting stuff. Nuts. It's kind of scary.
Okay.
If anything's going to distract you.
Oh man, and we're back.
We're back.
This is by far the most fun podcast I've had to date.
Man, there's a lot of variables. It's a great time. This mobile studio, man. It's awesome, and it presents its fair share of challenges.
That's why people don't do it, right?
Exactly.
Because they're smart.
Well, I give you props for doing it.
Thanks.
And it is cool, you know?
Yeah.
It is really cool.
You just can't have wind or mentally unstable people around.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, hey, you're going to have both of those things. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah. All right. No.
It's wild.
Now, okay. So the meat of this podcast is supposed to be you talking about Pinyons and Pines.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me get my notes.
Yeah, me doing Pinyons and Pines, which is 3 weeks away now or something along those lines.
Yeah. So you've been bikepacking on a few bikepacking trips.
Yes, been bikepacking with you. Got into bikepacking thanks to you. Some 3 years ago now, I think. Our first trip was we did an overnighter on the BCT. And I think that was 3 years ago or so.
Yeah,
something
seems right.
Like that. 3 or 4. I think 3. But yeah, so I'd consider myself still pretty darn new to bikepacking. It's just one of those things that, and I think that's one of the really cool things about bikepacking is there's so many layers to it. There's so many variables and logistical problem solving things. And then there's the whole physical element of it, depending on the route. So, it's funny to say that I've been sort of doing it for 3 years, yet I still feel like the most novice of novices, just because every time I go out, I learn so many things, or just, every time I talk to somebody, whether it's you or Dana or somebody who's been doing it a long time, there's so much valuable knowledge that I can get from people that have more experience than me. So, that being said, going for something like Pinyons and Pines this year, which it's one course this year, 370 miles. It's going to be my biggest mileage route to date. So yeah, definitely, 3 weeks out, starting to feel a little bit of the nerves, a little bit of the reality of, all right, what exactly are we getting ourselves into?
Yeah. It's your first grand apart, right?
First grand apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've only kind of done like party pace style trips with you and some other friends, but never anything where it's like a organized start time, grand apart style. I've always wanted to do Pinyons and Pines. I was always hoping that it would be my first sort of grand apart. I've never really committed to taking that much time off of work. I've usually let work be my excuse not to fully commit.
Yeah.
Sure. But this year, it's just I feel like I really needed something to train for, something to look forward to, something that will really disconnect me from work and from my normal routine for an extended period of time. So yeah, the timing worked out great, and really looking forward to it.
Nice. Yeah. So you're riding, what kind of bike are you riding?
So I've gone back and forth on this a couple times. I've pretty much landed full on riding my Revel R Plus titanium gravel bike.
Yeah.
Which is relatively new to me. I had a Revel Rover for about a year, which is now your bike.
Yes, the bike I just rode.
Yeah.
In VVR.
Yep. And the Revel R Plus is essentially the same exact bike, geometry-wise, just made out of a different material. Instead of carbon, it's titanium. It's my first titanium bike, and so far I think I've got somewhere around 1,000 miles on it, on the frame, and it's been great. Absolutely love it. I'm running 700 by 50 Maxxis Ramblers, so a pretty chunky big tire, like almost like a mountain bike tire, which I think is going to help sort of offset some of that rigid suspension downfall that I'm going to have on some of the more technical single track stuff. But we'll kind of see how that all plays out. I've really been toying with potentially riding my hardtail mountain bike. It seems like hardtail mountain bikes sort of own the demographic of bikes on Pinyons generally.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of been, for longer days, I've always been more comfortable on a drop bar bike.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it a go on a drop bar.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because most people, myself included, are comfortable on a mountain bike just because the posture is different. But it seems like you really developed, maybe a lot of like roadies are more comfortable on drop bar bikes. They've developed the muscles or the core strength or whatever that. Yeah.
And what's interesting is my background really isn't road riding at all. I started my biking, what's the word I'm looking for here? I started biking.
Journey.
Journey. Yeah, that.
The journey in life.
Yes. On BMX bikes when I was like in elementary school, probably 4th grade or so. My dad got me a BMX bike and took me to the local track. And that's, jumps and whoops and downhill stuff.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the start to biking for me. Obviously always into bikes even before that, but like really getting into bikes was BMX. So that was definitely a far cry from anything drop bar. And then I got really more into dirt bikes when I was a teenager, riding moto, doing that thing until my early 20s. And then I really got back into, I always kind of kept up with riding a lot with my dad, and just in the neighborhood. We'd go to the local neighborhood hill when I was in high school, and and ride up and down that.
Mhm.
And it was probably like a 700-foot climb, and that was like a big ride for us, just going up and down that. But I always kind of kept biking as a part of my life. And then when I was in my early 20s, I had just moved into a new apartment, and neighbor across the street, really cool guy, had just got him. I'll never forget it. It was a brand new giant Rain, like enduro style mountain bike.
Yeah.
And I had been kind of out of touch with where my mountain bikes have gone. This was probably 2015, 2016. And I remember he let me ride it around the neighborhood, and I got on it, and I was like, man, this thing feels so burly. I cannot believe like the technology in the suspension and the drivetrain and everything. And I was just obsessed with this bike. So I went to the local bike shop and ended up buying the low level giant full suspension bike at that time.
Yeah.
Single pivot. It was like a $1,400 bike. But that kind of got me back into riding pretty regularly, mountain biking. And I mountain bikes for a lot of years before I got my first gravel bike. I think I got my first gravel bike in 2017 or 18. And then, I really fell in love with putting in long miles when I got the gravel bike.
Yeah.
And then I quickly traded that bike and got the Revolt, which is now your guys' bike as well.
You sell all your old bikes to me.
I'm glad they're staying close.
Yeah. They're getting use.
Yeah. So I mean, I did my first century on that Revolt, and that kind of got me into like really being into more endurance style riding.
Yeah.
And I think because most of, if not all of my long days were on drop bar, something about drop bars has always just spoke to me when it comes to just long days on the saddle. And still to this day, I kind of wish I had better experiences with super long days bike packing on like my hardtail, but it just seems like I always enjoy it more on drop bar for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, there's so many people that underbike and overbike. Yeah. This stuff. It's wild seeing the spreads on some of these bikes, like looking at the rigs of the race and
totally
trying to look at the course and being like, oh, how's that going to work?
Right.
And then you see it play out. You're like, wow, I did not expect that.
Yeah. Rigs of the race, Stagecoach, which just happened a few weeks ago. There was everything from pretty burly full suspension to gravel bikes, fully rigid gravel bikes.
Fully rigid, ultralight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see, people can get it done on anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is every bike is going to have its time to shine on every course.
On a 360 mile, 25,000 foot, whatever. I don't even know how many feet. 30,000 feet, I think Pinyons is.
Yeah.
That is only 10% variable.
Right.
Is what bike you choose. Right.
Yeah. That's like, even less than I figured.
Kind of throwing a number out there, but like it's only a small fraction of the variables that could make or break you completing this route.
Yeah.
Of anyone.
Totally.
So, and we've seen like in past Pinyons and Pines, we've seen people underbiking, people on like a rigid drop bar gravel bike, Ezra, and Andrew Stremke on a single speed mountain bike battling for first.
Right. I mean, two totally different setups.
Yeah.
Like one is going to excel in a completely different area than the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
neck and neck the whole time,
which is a really cool testament to the idea of just ride what you got, ride what you're comfortable with, and you'll make it work.
Right. And some people might think like, oh, that's because it just happened to be coincidental that their fitness levels or whatever matched up for that. But then we saw it again with Dana and Jacob on VVR.
Yeah.
They kind of, because Jacob Miller was on a mountain bike.
Yeah.
And Dana was on a gravel bike at that time.
Right.
And they were like really close.
Right.
So, and they kind of were riding with each other, but and then on Stagecoach,
I was going to say Dana and
Jesse,
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing. Jesse was on a gravel bike.
And they actually tied that. Like they kind of co-finished that one, right?
Yep.
That was last year, 2023.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool to you're on the opposite side of the spectrum. You're going to be doing Pinyons on your full suspension, specialized Epic Evo.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly light as it is. I mean, I think that I'm really jealous of your setup.
Yeah, I like it. I have to say, like, that's the bike that I feel like after all of my journey of going to like an enduro bike and having a single speed for a little while, it's like the one that if I had one bike to pick, that would be the one I'd ride on every course no matter what, right? Like I'd even take it on VVR, and I plan to next time.
Really?
Yeah.
Over the gravel bike?
Well, so my long-term plan on VVR was get it under 24 hours counterclockwise on the gravel bike, and then try to do it clockwise on a mountain bike.
Okay, cool.
Just for something completely new.
Yeah.
Just for like because it's my third time now doing it, and I'm kind of like done with that direction, and I don't know, just all of the way that everything works out time-wise when it gets dark, when you're doing all the climbing, the direction of the climbing, all that stuff. I'm kind of like over it now. Like I achieved the goal I set out to do, because last year I was going to do that and then I missed it.
Yep. And
this year was like, all right, I'm going to do this, and then next time I'll flip and do it on the Evo.
Sick.
And see, because I might actually be faster on the Evo.
Right.
Because I think I'm a better climber on that bike than I am on the gravel bike.
Yeah. Kind of like how I am comfortable wise with drop bar. You're kind of the same way with flat bar. That's just kind of your sweet spot.
Yeah, it's just what I've gotten used to over the years.
Yeah.
Right. I think you've I mean, I don't know on paper, but you probably put in way more miles on a drop bar gravel bike, you think, than a mountain bike?
Yeah, I've probably outdone myself now, even though I have more years of riding mountain bike stuff.
Yeah.
For so many years, my mountain biking was really never about long miles. It was just about the funnest downhill.
Yeah.
You know, being from the Santa Cruz area.
Yeah.
That was just, you know, that's what most of the people in my group did, and what I was more passionate about at the time. So, yeah, probably more miles now for sure on drop bar.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like whatever, dude, whatever works for you. Like,
yeah,
because that's, I think the biggest factor is going to be is your mental state.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
How you feel you're doing, how you think you feel you're doing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that's more than how you actually feel.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, what I think is going to be the biggest challenge is the mental part of being out for as many days as I'm going to be out. Tentatively speaking, right now, my plan is sort of 60 to 70 miles a day. That could change. I'm not sure. I think that would be, if I did 60 to 70 miles a day, I'm going to be done in 5 or 6 days. So that's a long time to be out there.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be, you know, out in the elements, in the sun all day.
Yeah.
Variabilities of weather, who knows, hot and cold, all of that stuff. That's going to be the longest I've done 3 days, which we did last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is going to be the biggest. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm, you know, recently, just like over the last 48 hours, I'm thinking more about the potential of riding at night. And splitting up my days a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But I think it's all going to be spur of the moment. How are things going? How am I feeling? I don't want to go into it with a too hard of a set plan. I really want to be able to be fluid and change up without, you know, blowing myself up mentally. Just be like, you know what, instead of the 70 miles today, I might do 50 and then do 100 tomorrow, just based on the terrain. Who knows? So yeah, I don't want to go in with too much of a plan, and I think that's going to be important to stay fluid with whatever's happening is going to be happening.
Yeah, totally. Because some days you're going to roll much faster.
Yes.
Like the first 2 days, you're going to be like super slow, you know?
Yeah.
Like, or they're going to be like single track mountain bike pace.
Right.
Compared to let's do it by miles. The first 120 miles.
Yep, that sounds right.
I think, to Christopher Creek.
Yep.
And then there's a little bit of road or mixed gravel.
Yep.
And then there's more single track, and then there's a ton of road.
Yeah.
Or mixed gravel and road.
Yeah, I pre-rode some of that section, that Fossil Creek
Yeah.
section last weekend. And man, that's, you know, it's really, really washboardy, just because that road is very heavily trafficked, with everybody going down to that swimming hole down at the bottom there.
Yeah.
And that's the only section I rode. I basically got down to the water and back up. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty fast miles, man.
Yeah.
So that part of it, I think that basically the second half based on what I'm seeing in paper, is more gravel roady than it is single tracky, and I think the first half is more single tracky than it is gravel road.
Yeah.
But there's so much of the course I've never ridden. Like most of the course is going to be new territory for me, which is also really exciting.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's for me the same exact experience with Pinyons. Like the first couple years I rode it, I was like, wow, this is exploration on all the cool parts of Arizona that I'd never really thought about or seen, you know?
Yeah, man. And that's like really one of the parts that I'm most looking forward to. We've covered a lot of terrain in the Flagstaff area and north of the peaks and out west towards Williams. And I feel like I've covered a lot of ground in the 5 years I've lived here, 4 or 5 years. But, south is just an area that I haven't really, other than like Sedona.
Yeah.
Or I guess southwest, but anything southeast, I haven't really seen much of.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of Arizona Trail and things like that I've never touched. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some new sites and learning some new trails and figuring it out.
Yeah.
Which brings up the point of navigation.
Yeah.
Which, that's all going to be new. I just bought my first real bike computer.
Oh, right.
Never had one.
Right.
So that's going to be new. I bought on your recommendation, I bought a Garmin Edge 1040.
Yeah.
Non-solar.
On Dana's recommendation.
Yeah. Thanks, Dana.
I stole it from Dana. Well,
Dana, and then I even hit up Chris Wilson.
Okay, yeah.
And he said the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
he
what
said
he's got?
Garmin 1040. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So basically everybody's like Garmin 1040.
Yeah.
Some are saying solar, some are saying not.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Chris from whatever the Pacific Northwest, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to get solar.
Right.
But if you're from Arizona, like, it was worth the extra $100 for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I was looking at the battery lifetimes and I'm like
on VVR, I gained 2.5 hours of battery over 24 hours.
2.5 hours?
2.5 hours.
That's pretty dang good.
Yeah. And that was only with 12 hours of sun. So basically, because the rest was at night. So basically in 12 hours, I gained 2.5 hours.
That's actually better than I thought.
Yeah.
Because I've heard a lot of reviews of people saying, the solar kind of seems like a gimmick.
Depends on where you are.
Right. And, I think a lot of that solar gimmick thing comes from the people who wear it on their wrist.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of different variables with the wrist wearing.
Yeah.
Versus something that's
straight at the sun, like a solar panel.
Right.
Yeah.
And stationary on your bike.
It is basically like a solar panel.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I just got that thing like a couple of weeks ago. So I've been kind of ramping up my training rides recently, trying to do more 3 to 5 hour rides. I did a BCT route that you sent me, which is a good mix of some fire road or dirt road riding and some single track. It's about 50-50.
Yeah.
And I navigated purely on the Garmin and worked pretty good.
Yeah.
Still trying to figure out how to get it to beep a little bit less than what it is.
There's 2 approaches to that I've learned.
Yeah.
There's the leave all the beeps on and then turn them off as you learn what you don't want. Or like the Dana approach is like turn them all off and then turn them on as you discover the things that you want.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going with approach number 1. And then the other interesting thing about it is each like the gravel setting versus the mountain bike setting.
Yeah.
Have their own different beeps. Like yesterday I found out that mountain bike has a jump detection.
Oh, yeah.
Literally beeps every time you jump.
Yeah.
So, dude, I was riding a new trail here on Eldon, Meteor Ride, which just went up this weekend.
Yeah.
And it's a absolute hoot, but it's like a downhill trail. There's plenty of opportunity to catch some air. And that thing was beeping the entire way. And I'm like, trying not to look down at it because I'm like trying to focus on this trail that requires 100% attention.
Yeah.
And it would be like, nice jump. You got 2 feet of air.
It tells
like it literally like dissects your jump.
Wow.
Which is cool.
Yeah, I haven't used that feature.
But oh my God, that's a lot.
That's kind of too much.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So speaking of all the beeps, I have sharp turn detection on.
Yep.
And I didn't think I would like that, but coming down Cherry Creek Road, especially in the dark, I didn't do it in the dark this time, but last time I did it in the dark, and this time I did it in the day, and I had the sharp bend warning on, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Because you get ripping on those gravel descents.
Yeah.
And if there's a car coming around the corner or something, and you're like cutting a corner a little too tight or whatever, it's good to know something's coming up on an unfamiliar course. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
I think you hit the nail on the head for like the safety aspect of that.
Yeah.
At night, you're fatigued.
Yeah.
Unknown road. Carrying a lot of speed. Yeah, that's totally a feature that I would leave.
Or like a U. There's a sharp bend and then like almost a U-turn type warning on that. And I was like, I hated this before, but I love this now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then there's a few that I like. Eat alert, I have to say, like turn the eat alert on.
Yeah.
Every hour when you're doing endurance stuff, because like 2-3 hours will go by, you'll check out and you'll have forgotten to eat.
Totally. I've done the ghetto version of that, which is just on my phone.
Yeah.
And just set like an alert, a reminder every hour to just start buzzing at me that, hey, it's time to eat. Because I've definitely learned the hard way the importance of eating very regularly, whether you want to or not on a long day. So.
Yeah. Dude, it just, when I was sick going up Perkinsville Road, I was just like, shut up. It was like, eat. And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
That's the last thing you want to be like hearing.
Hate you.
Yeah. Don't talk to me right now. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I was literally like, having an abusive relationship with my Garmin.
Oh, yeah, I bet, dude. I bet. Hopefully it forgives you for some of the things I'm sure you said to it. Poor Garmin.
Yeah, good thing it's not tied into the mainframe.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
But yeah, so the nighttime nav is interesting too, because the backlight turns off.
Yeah.
At least the setting I had, and it only turns on and prompts you when there's a turn by turn warning.
I like that.
Which saves a whole bunch of battery, right?
Totally. I really like that. And the last thing I think I would want riding at night is like this thing bright just staring back at me and on my handlebars, it messes with your eyes and it distracts you and all that other stuff. You only want it when you want it, when you need it.
Plus there's no way you're going to be able to get enough battery life to keep the thing powered at night,
right?
Like deep into the night,
right?
Without having to recharge constantly. So
it's funny because I'm in the stage, and you could probably relate to this, where I'm thinking a lot about it, thinking a lot about different things. And every time I think about a certain subject or a certain, part of the variabilities or the planning, it unfolds another 10 things that I need to think about that thing. And so
it's like this infinite
unfolding of different things that you got to think about or try to plan for, right. Or and at some point I think you just got to be at peace with the fact that for me it's going to be about figuring out some things on the go. I don't think that there is a such thing of being totally prepared for something like this with my experience level. So yeah man.
No, there isn't.
There is
for any experience level.
Yeah.
Like I think that from everything I've learned from other people, and I have to shout out Andy on this one because he's probably the king of the people I've talked to, of just people that are calm and do on the fly problem solving.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be what you can do. You can prepare and you can prepare well, but like there's always going to be variables, and you got to be a problem solver in the moment, And I think that's what's so challenging about bikepacking, or like what he does with the adventure race thing.
Yep.
Is these like on the fly, critically thinking when you're in situations where you're depleted, sleep deprived, hungry, upset, and you still can keep it together enough to like make really good decisions,
I think that right there is the biggest skill set to obtain to be a successful bikepacker.
Yeah. Or endurance runner.
Or endurance anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, or adventure racer.
Yep.
Or
any of
whatever.
These things where you're out for extended periods of time exerting a lot of energy. Right. That is the big thing, is just on the go problem solving.
Right.
Sort of like what me and you've talked about in the past quite a bit, of just like taking a step back when you are feeling pretty cracked, when you are feeling, because you kind of inevitably get a little bit emotional,
right.
When you're out there, sometimes you're not thinking super as you would if, right now, when you're just talking,
right,
and everything's good and you're comfortable and you have plenty of water and food, and you're going to sleep in your own bed, all those things. When you take all that away, it's funny to see what happens to the brain, because thought patterns start to change, and it's like, all right, hold on. What's going on here? Let me recognize this in the moment. Let me make sure I counteract this.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big one for me.
Yeah.
It's just figuring that out.
Yeah. And so the question becomes like, how do you practice something like that? Like, do you just practice it by doing it?
Exactly. How do you practice that?
Yeah.
How do you train for that? How do you train your mind? Other than like really creating some sort of mantra maybe in your mind of like that you can always go to bring you back to some of the thoughts you were having when you were thinking about how it's going to go.
Right. I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a Pavlovian psychological training.
Yeah.
Like you train yourself to put yourself in a certain mind state by using like a verbal cue.
Totally. Yeah.
And then you try to bring yourself back into that later on.
Yeah. Because it's all about just reminding yourself that, for me anyway, about reminding myself that, hey, I thought about this already. I knew that this is part of it.
Right.
I knew that this was going to happen. I knew that I was going to feel this way. It's time to just, get through it. Or let's logically think about the situation. Let's look at it from the 30,000 foot view, zoom out and figure it out. Way easier said right now than done. I sound like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But me to like think back when I'm out there in 3 weeks and I want to do nothing more than to call Gigi and have her come pick me up. It's going to be like, all right, hold on. Remember when we were sitting in the tent at the Y talking about it? Yeah, that's what I got to do. I got to like put that into motion.
Hold yourself accountable to this moment, right?
Yeah.
To that headspace.
Yeah.
So I had to do something similar, I guess, on the VVR when I was saying earlier about that Lake Mary bailout point where you can either just keep going straight or you have to turn left and spend another 5 or 6 hours. Before I got there, I knew that point was coming, and I actually I was imagining it in my head. I was like imagining myself turning left. That's all it took was the left turn, right?
Yep.
After you take that left turn, you're okay.
Yep.
Because like you're in it now, right? Yep. But like that moment where you have to literally pick the fork in the road.
Yeah.
Right. I visualized that. I visualized myself, and I even said it out loud, I think, while I was riding. Like, I'm going to turn left. Like, I'm turning left. There is no like going straight. Even though my feet were like frozen, I couldn't feel them. I was just like ready to be home, right? It was like, I'm going to visualize myself going left. And then an hour later when I got there, it was like, it was a lot easier to not even think about having to make that decision. You know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's cool to hear you talk about some of those things, just because, for me, you've got me into the bikepacking thing and always been sort of somebody who inspires me and I look to as inspiration and learn a ton from. So it's cool to hear, it seems like sort of across the board, it's kind of part of it, of whether you've done 10 of these things, 100 of these things, or this is your first one, like all the same set of challenges apply to pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Whether they're mental or, physical or environmental or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people have physical challenges, and I got to commend those people because I don't have, I'm okay physically.
Yeah.
It's just the mental battle that you got to deal with.
Yeah.
So, but there are some like bikepackers that have, like, I think there's a guy that has spina bifida or something. And Greg, I think, I forget his name, but I know he did Stagecoach and he talked about it on a podcast and stuff.
Yeah, props, man. That's incredible.
So like, you also, there's also a tool that you can use there when you think about perspective, when you're out there suffering.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And that is a very helpful tool too. And that helps me a lot to just think about like, when you're feeling like shit, you get out there and you say, and literally you say it out loud. I say it out loud. Like I'm having a conversation with myself. I say, I'm lucky to be out here doing this. Like I'm fortunate that I have my legs to be able to do this. Some people don't. So I'm going to use them until they completely fail me. Like, and I mean, fail like beyond cramping. And I mean, they stop working, and that has never happened to me once with enough time. Right.
Yeah.
You take a break, they'll come back. You get some water, they'll come back. it always comes back, even though it feels like it's never going to, right?
Yep.
And if you can kind of like self-talk yourself when you're really low and literally try and force a smile and tell yourself a stupid dad joke or whatever,
Yep.
it changes everything, man.
Totally. That's a great reminder and a really good point. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, hey, we chose this.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
we're very fortunate to be able-bodied enough and be able to have this bike that we're riding and be able to have this time away from work.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is awesome. This is super cool.
Yeah.
Reminding yourself of that, you
Yeah.
know, is, yeah, I can imagine that.
And the most successful people in these things are pretty much like endlessly optimistic.
Yep.
You know, and it's hard to get into that state, but if you can like train it or learn it. So, and you're such an optimistic guy, like in general, like you're like the most optimistic person I think I know.
Thanks, man.
Like I said in the intro, like, and you're just always got such a great attitude. You know, I think once you cross through a couple of these boundaries that tests that, because it's going to test it. It's tested you before.
Yes.
You know, but this is going to be like, this is like the ultimate next test for you, you know?
Totally. Yeah. This is definitely the ultimate next test for me. And it's going to be a journey. I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm looking forward to embracing it, man. Whatever comes of it, you know,
Yeah.
just going for it and being out there and meeting some cool people. You know, that's one of the aspects that I've really looked forward to about A Grand Apart is kind of the community. And I know the community has brought so much to your life, and you know, you speak super highly of the people that you've met through bikepacking and how it's just, you know, a little different than what I may be used to with running events or with gravel events or whatever it may be. So I'm really looking forward to that, is, you know, meeting some people out there and having some camaraderie and suffering together maybe. And we'll see how it all plays out, but hopefully I'll be around some people for some miles and maybe a night or two. So yeah, that's going to be a cool part of it.
Yeah. So I'm going to get a drink.
Yeah, man.
I got to take a break.
Yeah.
Let's take a break.
Break time.
And we're back. My next question on Pinyons is, are there any things that you've thought through, any particular sections that concern you or you're intimidated by?
The whole first 120 miles.
Okay. Excellent.
I guess minus like the first 30 of them, because I know pretty well the first 30 of them, and I know the first 30 of them are not easy miles. Like, they have us going up over some straight up mountain bike trails on Eldon, that are going to be pretty chunky. They're going to be pretty not gravel bike friendly. But everything after that, all the way to Christopher Creek, is really unknown for me. Like, that's that section that I was talking about that, like, I don't have much experience with at all. So I am just going to be, you know, kind of in a new area.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that it's Arizona Trail, I believe.
Yeah. For most of it.
Yeah. And I know that it's notoriously chunky.
Yeah.
And slow. And the other part of that first 120 miles is it's the most remote as far as areas to get food or water. So, you know, like once you're on the west half of the southwest half of the loop, you're kind of going through, you got Christopher Creek as number one spot. And then there's another spot between Christopher Creek and Camp Verde. And then there's Camp Verde, which then goes up and over, and then you get into Cottonwood or Cottonwood.
Yeah, up and over Mingus to Cottonwood.
Yeah, and then after Cottonwood, you go and you get into Sedona, and then after Sedona, I'm in pretty familiar territory. You go up Schnebly and Flag.
Almost home free. Yeah.
Get home gear goes in. So really, it's that first 120 miles.
See, last year it was the opposite.
Yeah.
So it was the most remote at the end.
Oof.
Which I think is more challenging than it being most remote when you're fresh.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty cracked. You're pretty fatigued.
Yeah.
Yeah. I prefer it, the first half, to be the tougher half. So yeah, I guess I'm really happy that unlike last year, we don't finish on like going up. You guys finished on going up Hart last year, right? Or
We were supposed to, but
the
it didn't
300
happen.
the 300 people did, or was that 2 years ago?
The 300 didn't even like finish last year. It was a
Oh,
disaster
man.
because of the rain and
Right.
yeah. And we're back, and we officially staked down the tent. Just giving you an update. The sandbags didn't work. We have to stake this bad boy down.
Let it be known, Dylan has been working his tail off like every time we break to try to keep this thing from flying away. So props, Dylan. You're figuring it out, man.
Thanks.
This is a tough day to do a podcast out here, but we're doing it.
We're doing it.
We're making it work.
Okay, so the first 120 miles are the scariest part. No resupply, hardest riding.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what your fear is. Those
Yeah,
things?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, the no resupply. You know, we're gonna be pretty heavy at that point because we're all gonna be carrying, I think, a lot of water
Absolutely,
and a lot of food.
Yeah. You know what though? On the bright side, there's going to be a lot of people still.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of camaraderie going on, and
That's so true, and that's another testament to the hard part being in the beginning versus the end when when everything kind of splits more.
right. when you're
Inevitably
alone. Yeah.
at the end. So yeah, like having the hardest, hopefully the hardest. I'm talking like I know. I have no idea. based on what I've seen on Ride with GPS and the little bit of route study that I've done, the hardest part's in the beginning. So
Yeah.
Dana will know. Dana does know. You probably know. You've probably ridden
Oh,
most
yeah.
of this course, right?
I think I've ridden all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like at one point or another.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I've been on all of it. But that doesn't mean the variables don't change when you combine them in certain different ways
Right.
over nights and days, and
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
that's where it gets tricky because that's what keeps it fresh, right? And especially this direction.
Yeah.
I've gone the other direction a lot more than we've gone this direction.
Yeah. I mean, Pinyons has always gone counterclockwise, right?
Yeah, almost always.
Yeah.
It almost always goes off the rim on that side and comes back on the other side. And
Yeah.
one of the things we wanted to do this year was make it clockwise to change up the variables a little bit.
Totally.
And not as much logistical planning. It was a lot easier to logistically plan that way because we knew all the spots, but it's from a different angle, from a different direction. So
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And no 500 this year.
right, just 360, just one course.
Yep.
Just a lot of variables with two distances. So
Yeah.
So that was kind of the reasoning behind that. So yeah, well, I'm thinking about water on that first day because I haven't really gotten into logistical planning yet for Pinyons. I was getting through VVR.
Well, I look forward to asking you a lot of questions over the next few weeks.
yeah. I mean, I don't even know where the first water's at. I'm trying to think because it's pretty dry.
Mormon Lake Lodge
Right.
or Village or whatever. If you can get there when it's open.
Right.
Last time I was doing a training ride a couple weeks ago, and was down there, and it was still not open for the season. I don't remember the exact date that it had on the front door, but it was May.
Yeah.
Hopefully early May. I think it'll be open.
Yeah, it'll be open, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to double check.
Yeah, we'll need to double check.
Yeah, and if not, there's going to be water. There's going to be like water in and around some of those areas. So like Weimer Spring probably will have water. Now there was still like 10-inch things of snow on that road.
Wow.
On VVR. Yeah, with
Was the
tracks
gate
running
open?
through them. Which gate?
The gate at the beginning of Weimer Springs when you get off Mormon Lake Road.
Oh.
When you turn left, because that was closed to cars last time I was down.
It had a road closed sign, but it didn't have a gate.
Okay.
So they weren't letting cars in,
Okay.
but it was open to bikes at that time.
Was
and
there any water in the lake itself?
in
Yeah.
Mormon Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, there was.
There's like a ton of natural water.
Yeah.
I guess that's, one of the advantages of spring is there's going to be all this natural snow melt all around.
For sure.
So
Yeah, that's going to make things water-wise easier for some of it.
And I'm sure all of those tanks and stuff, there's a couple spots on Lake Mary Road that I believe that the route crosses where there's some like natural spots for water.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's going to be water marked within like acceptable distances, like 50 miles, I think 50 or 60 miles. There's like confirmed water on the route.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at it exactly, but I know that we pretty much identify good water stops. And Christopher Creek's 120 miles in. And once you get off the rim, there's water everywhere.
Really?
Everywhere. It's like a tropical rainforest in some spots.
Beautiful.
Dude, it's crazy.
That's great.
Because you're like in these like little micro ecosystems that you got this giant Mogollon rim and you got all this water coming down through the water table.
Yeah.
Out the bottom of it.
Nice.
And, like Highline Trail and all that. There's water all along there.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. And pretty good. Sounds like it's pretty good water.
Oh, yeah.
It's not rated.
It's like flowing water with like rainbow trout jumping in the air and stuff.
Beautiful,
dude. It's
man.
Like, yeah. It's like a different world. You don't feel like you're in Arizona.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I'm stoked to see.
It's incredible.
Can't wait.
There's a part where you get through Christopher Creek and you climb up to Washington Park where the Highline Trail starts. And there's a creek that parallels that road that's just like incredible. Like amazing parts of Arizona.
Awesome.
You're going to love it, dude.
I can't wait, man.
Yeah. You just got to keep pedaling.
Yeah, just keep pedaling.
And when you're tired of pedaling, walk.
Yeah. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Whether you're going 2 miles an hour. Psychologically, that's another thing that usually can get me a little bit is when I start to go really, really slow. And I'm like, at this pace, I'm never, that's what starts to go through my mind.
Yeah.
When I'm walking or when I'm just dead legs and I'm just going slow. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going 5 miles an hour. I start doing the math. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah.
I have to take that out.
Yeah. I mean, I was walking my completely fully unloaded gravel bike on VVR a couple times, like in the middle of the night, walking.
And you set the previous record. You beat the previous record by 2 hours and you walked.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You just
like, look, a lot of people haven't ridden VVR. So like, I don't think going back to me setting the previous record or whatever, Matt, like that's not a very good benchmark.
Yeah.
But I get your point. Like, if you just keep moving a little bit at a time, walking doesn't mean you're failing.
Right.
Definitely.
That's a good one.
But like, there's many people who can go way faster than me on VVR. I know that, right?
Yeah.
There's just not that many people who've done it. So I don't want to benchmark against those
awful
people.
humble.
Well, I don't want to, thanks,
yeah,
but
I get it.
Like, I want more people to do it. I want to see somebody give Dana a run for his money.
Yeah, I commented on his Strava after the ride, and I'm like, that is going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing somebody try it.
Yeah.
But damn.
Yeah.
That's just gnarly.
Yeah. So anyway, keep moving.
Yes.
Even if you have to walk. Walking is just a part of ultra bikepacking.
Yeah.
It's just a part of it.
Yeah.
It's actually more efficient in some situations.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you think about how many people have such success bikepacking on single speed. It's like, they're walking a lot.
Yeah. For sure.
They're walking a lot.
For sure.
And they're absolute maniacs. They're some of the best bikepackers in the world. Solely do it on single speeds.
Yeah.
And hike a lot.
Yep. So, yeah. Let's see. So we got the bike covered. What are you doing for sleep kit and equipment?
So game plan as of right now is a bivy and a quilt and a sleeping pad, which I've always done tent. So this is, as long as we're going into this without a ton of rain forecast, I'm sticking with this plan.
You know the lore behind Pinyons and Pines, right?
It always rains.
It's like 10% chance of rain is 110% chance of rain.
Yeah, I know.
It's like notorious for being like a weather disaster every time.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Something about mid-May in northern Arizona, man. It's like I don't know. It's like right in between seasons, and it's not quite monsoon season. We shouldn't have monsoons, but we always do. And something about it. So yeah, tentatively speaking, if it's not a complete washout weather-wise, I'm sticking with that plan, I think. If it is a lot of rain forecasted, I'll probably switch back over to the tent. I don't want to do that just because my bivy setup is just way lighter.
Yeah.
So much smaller and so much lighter. And ultimately I'm kind of going for as light as possible. Everybody is bikepacking, but I'm really kind of putting more of a focus on keeping really narrowing down what I'm bringing and bringing things that really serve a purpose, no stove, very light sleep kit if I can get away with it, and just really going minimalist on it. So even though which is kind of contradictory to my mileage plan of being out there for 5 or 6 days, but hopefully I'm going to be able to work at least one night of a hotel in there, if not two.
Yeah.
So that's going to kind of break things up and, allow me to get the body kind of cleaned up a little bit and sleep in a bed and charge up the stuff and do all that. So if everything goes to plan, I'll sleep in a hotel at least once.
Yeah. That's so revitalizing.
Yeah.
The last time I did that was on the Coco 250. I always looked forward to it.
Yeah.
Because it was like the second or third day in.
Yep.
And it was just so nice, dude, to get a giant burrito and go back to a hotel.
Yeah.
And usually it's pretty cold at that time of year in October in Williams.
Yeah.
So, it's like mid 30s. So to like get into a warm bed. And then the hard part's leaving.
Yeah.
For me.
Totally.
Like when you're in an uncomfortable bivvy, it's pretty easy to get out and leave because at least you can like move.
Right.
But like when you're in a hotel bedroom watching whatever, Shallow Hal or whatever.
Oh yeah. Totally. Just eating and having a shower and
you're like, oh, I got to ride another 90 miles or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine some of these Tour Divide guys that, they go and stay in a hotel for like 2 or 3 hours.
Crazy.
I'm too cheap for that, first of all.
Well, yeah.
I want to get my money's worth.
Totally. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. I mean, I get the idea behind why they do it, but it's pretty, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
2 to 3 hour stay is pretty gnarly.
It's not really a hotel. I have to reframe my thought of what the purpose of a hotel is for, right?
Yeah.
Like forever it's just been like, cause you leisure and you chill out and you watch the TV and you eat and you're on vacation. Right.
Yeah.
But when you're bikepacking and you're trying to get a time, it's a different calculus, right? It's
totally.
It's a spot that's covered that has a shower that you can charge stuff at.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. For me, it's probably going to be a little in between.
Right.
Hypothetically.
Right.
In my mind.
Look, the more you go that way, the more chance of success you're going to have at finishing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially for your first grand apart. Like,
yeah,
I've been there. Right. And it definitely helped me like recharge myself and my spirit before getting back out there and finishing.
Yeah.
So it's a good call in my opinion.
Yeah. Hopefully logistically I can make it work. That's another one of those things that a lot of variability there. And
Camp Verde is probably, if you're going to get one, that's the spot to do it in.
Yeah. And I would think that'd be like somewhere in the 3-day range, which might be perfect.
Yep.
So hopefully I'll be able to make that work. So yeah, bivvy's the plan, and brand new bivvy. You've had the helium. It's the Outdoor Research helium bivvy. So it's got some structure. It's one pole.
Yeah.
So you can kind of. It's not a total coffin.
Yeah,
it's a coffin.
No, it's pretty comfortable. That one's fairly comfortable. It's the roomiest of the bivvies.
Yeah.
And it's got a netting on it, so it keeps it out of your face.
Right.
It's got decent exhaustion. What do you call it?
Ventilation.
Fart ventilation.
Fart ventilation is really important.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. When you're out there eating ho-hos and pizza.
It did, and this is breaking news, it is the bivvy that soaked through on me. When I was in that horrible monsoon storm.
Now you tell
on
me.
The Coco 250. I saved it for this. On the Coco 250.
Because they say it's water.
I know.
Proof?
I
think they say proof.
Yeah, that's what it said when I was in it.
Really? Was yours old?
No, it was brand new.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, but it was also one of the most epic storms I've ever been in.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unbelievable, dude. The amount of moisture. So, and I would have probably been fine. It's just the problem is that it like was concave at my feet, so water was pooling up there.
Right.
And in theory, I was like, oh, well, my feet will be down there and it'll be like puffed up and it'll like, the sleeping bag will like push it up in the center and so all the water will roll off.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't happen. It pooled up. Like my legs were out like this and it pooled up in the center. And then once anything pools up,
it's gonna soak.
It's rare it's gonna, especially something that's like partially breathable.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to solve that other than you maybe have to do a tie out on it or something in the center.
Yeah. So
they might have one.
I have a couple bivy questions for you. Do you bring a ground tarp or like a footprint to lay it on?
No, not when I'm going ultralight.
Okay.
Yeah, I do if I'm like kind of going casual, but no.
Okay. Because I was thinking about bringing one of those, and I was thinking in the instance of a bad storm, creating some sort of cover with it over the bivy using my bike handlebar and like the rear tire, almost like what I've seen you do with different sleeping setups in the past, where you kind of create a bit of a shelter above your shelter.
You could, yeah.
Thinking about doing
and you're saying double your ground sheet as a tarp, as
Correct.
an emergency tarp.
Yep.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. You have to get good at tying knots in a hurry.
Yeah.
That's kind of the crux of that whole situation.
Yeah,
right?
you got to be captain tying knots
Yeah.
when you got to be captain tying knots.
Right.
Which I remember last summer you were like,
dude, I'm still doing it.
Not tying like a mother chicken.
I practice once a week.
That's awesome.
Mondays. Actually, this
Mondays
morning.
is not tying.
Monday is
day?
not tying day. Yeah. Seriously, I have a reminder on my phone.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Because it's one of those skills that you'll forget. I wanted to ingrain it so deeply in my brain that when I'm completely checked out, I know how to tie the correct knots.
Well, dude, it's gonna pay off for you if it hasn't already.
I hope so.
It's like one of those lifelong skills that in the outdoors, like it's gonna come in clutch.
Right. And this is all for Colorado Trail Race.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm gonna encounter weather there.
What month is that?
August.
Yeah.
And there's always weather on that.
Yeah.
And
the Rockies, man, they generate their own deal.
Exactly.
Weather.
So I've been literally diligent for a year now. I was doing it every day for 6 months until I kind of figured it. Like I was like, okay, I can back off the daily knot tying routine now and move on to the weekly knot tying routine.
Well, I have a lot of respect for that, man, because obviously it's discipline. Setting aside time daily or weekly to practice something as mundane as knot tying takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's a super usable skill. I don't know how to tie knots. I could probably tie one knot and not well. So I'll
pun intended.
Yeah.
Good one, dad joke. Just remember that when you're suffering. You're not joke.
Right. So yeah, man.
Well, so the thing is in theory, your ground tarp to emergency shelter thing is a fantastic idea. But if you can't autopilot the knots, it's not going to work. You're just going to get more pissed off.
If you can't execute it.
Exactly.
You're just going to be frolicking around.
Right. So
like the time I was underneath the monsoon storm at the edge of the world.
Right. Frolicking with your tent.
Frolicking with my tent.
Right. Exactly. So I think that's maybe another lesson to learn, is what things are critical to your plan that you can practice ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then do them so that when the time comes, you're not kind of a mess. The knots that I decided to, because there's like, thousands of different types of knots and stuff. It's like a whole thing. And I picked like these 3 knots, and basically they're the easiest to tie and untie when you have gloves on.
Nice. Smart. Yeah. Very smart move.
And one of them's called the Evenk hitch.
Okay.
EVENK. And it's like the Siberian hitch. And it's a knot that was developed in Siberia because the people that learned how to, because it was cold all the time and they had to wear gloves all the time. So they had to learn how to tie a specific knot that they could tie and untie while wearing gloves.
Right.
So you use like 2 fingers and it's really interesting.
That's great.
Yeah. And they untie with a pull. So you don't have to like, when you're all like frustrated and pissed off, and you can literally just pull it and it's like I don't know what they would call it, but it's like a loop knot or something where it just like pulls itself out.
That's awesome. I'm going to ask you later because I'm sure I'll forget the name. Siberian hitch knot.
Yeah.
And you think, but I'm going to ask you later. I'll look those up. Start practicing.
Yeah.
And then the other question I was going to have is, what kind of stakes were you bringing when you were using that bivy? Were you bringing a lot of stakes? Like 4 stakes?
So I still use stakes for the tarp.
Yeah.
Because you want to run you run your main line over the top. I forget what they top it. It's like your main guy line. One to a tree, one to another tree if you have one, in between 2 trees, and then you tarp it over like an A-frame. And then I stake out all 4 sides on that. And I was using MSR groundhogs.
Okay.
I think. They're super light. You can get them at REI.
Okay, sweet.
And they have little like pull loops on them.
Nice.
That's kind of important for me.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like, for me, it's like the little stuff that frustrates you the most when you're setting up and taking down your setup.
Yeah.
Like that stuff is magnified when you're exhausted.
Totally.
And you do a poor job at it.
Yep.
Which may have consequences later if you don't like set your system up right when you're exhausted.
Yeah, and the other part of that is, mental energy is energy.
Absolutely, dude.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's at all true, but I did hear somebody say that your brain burns more calories than anything.
Yeah.
No idea if that's true.
Yeah. Science,
but I know
Dr. Science.
Yeah, no clue if that is misinformation or what, but it resonated with me because it's like, hey, mental energy is energy. Yeah. You want to be as dialed autopilot as possible.
Yeah. Even if it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It forces you could learn how to autopilot things.
Yeah.
That's where it's at, man.
Yeah.
It's just getting and I do believe that all these people that are just exceptionally good at this stuff or appear to be exceptionally good and fast, they've just gotten really good at all the little things.
Right. Yeah. It's like, and it's repetition, as the more you do something.
Yeah, totally.
I'm going to probably be way better at putting my gear away, like setting up and tearing down by the end of the Pinyons than I am at the beginning of Pinyons, just because I'm going to be used to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see your evolution. However it goes, it's going to go, and you're going to be different afterwards. I'm telling you that, like, just being out there and experiencing the group start and the grand depart is a special thing. And I think there's some people, I won't name names, but I think they just show up to these things to be part of the grand depart.
Props, man. That's awesome.
Because they like the culture and the community.
Yeah.
Of it,
Yeah. There's a certain energy.
There's a whole thing to the energy of it. And like everybody's got their bikes and everybody's got different setup. And every year you see like a new piece of tech that the bike bag companies have developed, or like one year you started seeing all these tail fin bags, right?
Yeah.
On Arizona Trail, I started seeing all these rear mounted racks like out of nowhere,
which I know you're a huge fan of.
Yeah. Huge fan. No, I think they're just one more thing to break.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to it. And it's speaking of evolution, it's cool to see your evolution from doing Pinyons, attempting Pinyons and Pines. Your first year attempting Pinyons was 2019?
Yeah, 19. Yeah.
And didn't finish.
Right.
Due to...
Yeah, so the first year was a figure 8 loop. And that was... So it did a big loop down south. And then... So it basically went down to Sedona and back up Schnebly Hill Road, back to Flag. And I had a Surly Karate Monkey steel hardtail. Every Revelet bag I could buy that they made. Right? So my whole setup was like, who knows, 50, 60 pounds.
Yeah, that bike to start is not a light bike.
Yeah. It's 35, 30, whatever.
Yeah. It's
I didn't weigh it. I was not into weighing things at that time, right?
Right.
And then all the bags, so like feed bags, front roll, seat bag, gas tank, everything. Frame bag, all of it, right? And just stuffed with everything, like heavy. And then water. And then I had a Brooks B17 saddle on it. So like the leather, like the nice, because I'd been commuting on those forever, and I thought that they were like God's gift to the earth, right?
Yeah. You see them for commuting. You don't really see them in bikepacking.
Right. And there's a reason. And I learned that reason on the first year. It got wet and it like stretched out. I didn't have like you're supposed to put this like anti-weatherproof or this like weatherproofing cream or something on those to keep the leather from stretching. But the thing like got wet and stretched out, and it became like a big like bucket for my sit bones.
Oh.
And so instead of like precisely positioned spots on the sit bones, like the saddles I have now, it was just like these holding zones for my sit bones, and they just chafed the whole time.
Oh man, that sounds brutal.
And that was like pre-Squirrel's Nut Butter, and I was doing a lot more sitting and pedaling, and I do a lot more standing and pedaling now. So there were all these and all the weight. I had like 3.5 liters of water on my back.
Man,
I hadn't figured out like water distribution on the bike yet.
Yeah,
you know. like, where do I carry all this water? It was like, put it all on my back.
Yeah.
No problem. So there was just like all this weight, and it just crushed my ass. And it was just like, I got through that first loop and I got back to Flag, and I looked at the weather, and there was a whole nother north loop, and there was a horrible storm coming. And I had just gotten off the Coco 250 where I had that really bad situation with the weather, and it soaked through and it snowed on me. And I was a little bit like, super hesitant. I don't want to use the word PTSD, but I was like hesitant to put myself in a potentially dangerous situation again. And I was probably erring on the side of caution. I'm sure it wasn't that bad in hindsight. But at that time I was like, I got saddle sores. I can barely sit on my seat. There's a storm coming. I'm out.
And you're passing through town.
I'm right next to my house.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Totally.
And I had finished the Coco 250 before that. So I felt like I felt accomplished, but then I was like, nah, it's not happening.
Yeah.
So then that was that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was 2019.
And that was the year that Chris Seistrup won, and he was training for the Tour Divide.
Oh,
and he
wow.
went on a couple months later and won the Tour Divide.
Woo!
After that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then he just like stopped bikepacking.
Yeah, haven't
shortly
heard that
after
name. I don't think I've heard that name.
Yeah, but in 19 he took it.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then 2020, similar situation?
Yeah, 2020 it was similar. I don't know if it was a figure 8, but I know again I had really bad saddle sores. Like really bad about 120 miles in. That was the point I couldn't surpass on these things.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to be like, because when I first started bikepacking, it was like, okay, let's go 50 miles, 60 miles.
Mm-hmm.
It could like, these are my acceptable distances. It would take me 8 hours to go 50 or 60 miles. And then as time went on, I got a little faster, and I was like, okay, I think I can go 100 miles. And then I hit this wall where my body then physically was like, nah, you're gonna bleed from your butt cheeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, you're not doing this, buddy.
Right.
You're that's it.
It's a terrible feeling.
And I thought that was kind of like it for me. I was like, well, this is it. I can't figure this out. And so I scratched that year somewhere near Mormon Lake. Jess came and picked me up. And then I was like determined. Oh, I had Jones handlebars too. So like those big old sweeping bars.
Yeah.
Because I was having hand problems. And what happened is, as I think it like the Jones bars like put me too far back,
mm-hmm.
and it just accentuated the saddle sores a
right.
little bit.
Right. Too much contact on the seat.
Yep. Because I was trying to fix my hand problem.
Right.
And I'm kind of I have a bad habit of being like all or nothing,
mm-hmm.
like going all the way into one thing or the other thing, no matter what it is. And I was doing the same thing with the bars. I was like, this is going to solve my hand problems.
Right.
And it created a whole nother set of problems.
Yeah.
When I realized later on that there's this middle ground where you got to balance like the weight on your back, standing up and pedaling, walking a little bit to give your ass a break, saddle butter, right? Squirrels, use some squirrels, get a good seat that fits, and be in a position that doesn't hurt your hands too bad and doesn't hurt your butt too bad.
Right.
There's this like perfect spot, right? And it took me like 3 or 4 years to figure that out.
Yeah, there's a lot to that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little intricacies.
And it's all personalized.
Very personalized. It's not a one size fits all.
Right.
What works for you could not work for 10 other people.
I still see people with like Brooks saddles. I do see it every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, you get the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. 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 So
and rightfully so.
So after the second year, I ditched the Jones bars.
Yep.
And I went and I tried to do that first 100 miles again. Like afterwards, like a month later. Because I was so like torn up about not being able, I wanted so badly to figure the solution out to this problem.
Yeah.
So I just kept going back to it. And at some point in that process is when I'd been getting squirrels samples the whole time, squirrels nut butter samples the whole time.
Yep.
And I like didn't like it because I thought it was too hard.
Right.
And I finally like tried it. And then it was like, that was the thing. That wasn't the 100% solution. I still would have had problems if I would have kept like the saddle and the handlebars, but it all kind of happened and evolved at the same time.
Yeah.
And like I kind of figured out, oh, it's all these little things, and then pre-applying the saddle butter. And I still get saddle sores and stuff, but it's just it's manageable now. You know?
Yeah, it's not the same level. Yeah, I mean, ever since it's been a couple years now that you've turned me on to squirrels, and I have not thought about another product. It just works better for me.
It's the shit.
Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, that's really cool. So 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Didn't make it to the end. Persevered into when was the first time you completed it? Was it 21?
21.
Okay.
So, and I did the Arizona Trail Race in 2020.
Okay.
The 300.
Yeah.
ITT on the 300.
Yep.
And so I actually finished the AZTR before I finished Pinyons.
Okay. So that built you up.
That was a boost. Yeah.
Confidence was.
And that took like 6 days.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that was your longest outing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
And that was a big like self accomplishment for me, you know, like definitely a big confidence builder.
Yeah, totally.
And then that was March of 2020, like right when COVID was happening. And dude, it was the weirdest, like literally COVID was happening in the West as I was on the Arizona Trail.
Whoa.
So I would go, cause you'd have like a day or two between cities.
Yeah.
And you'd end up in a new city. Like you'd be out, you know, camping, and then you'd come into like, north of Tucson, or you'd go, whatever that town is just north of, Mount Lemon. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, and you'd get into town and you'd like hear people on their cell phones being like, you know, this thing is happening, this weird thing. And I don't know if you remember that time, but it was so weird. The atmosphere in the world was so weird.
Bizarre. Yeah. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a weird buzz of what the heck is this thing?
Yeah. And there's like 2 times, like 2 things that happened that you can remember, maybe 3 things that happened depending on your age, that you can remember exactly where you were at that time. 9/11.
Yep.
The O.J. Simpson chase.
That one beats me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, my timeline, my lifespan doesn't line up.
And when COVID like first got real for people, and when like the great toilet paper shortage.
Yeah.
Like I stopped into one of the resupply spots to take a shit. Like I was like, oh, thank God I'm going to be able to take a shit here.
Yeah.
No toilet paper. Yeah.
That's the worst.
It's like I spent 2 days out in the desert, you know?
Jesus.
And I finally found a toilet, and there's no toilet paper.
Wow. That's dude.
Yeah.
That's
the lady had one like hidden behind the counter that she loaned me.
And it's like gold. I'm surprised she let you have it, dude. What a nice lady.
I know.
Good karma's gonna spring on her.
I should have used that what was it, leave no trace method that Lindsay Knoll taught from last.
Yeah.
Just using a rock or a stick.
Right. Wild.
What a badass.
Dude, complete badass. Yeah, a lot of things to learn in that podcast. Nuts.
Yeah. Anyway. So anyway, Arizona Trail confidence builder, drank some like gross mine water, like radioactive mine water. Listened to some podcasts.
Yeah.
Built the confidence back up, got back into Pinyons and Pines the next year, and I was like, all right, I can do it this year.
Yeah.
Like if I can do Arizona Trail, I can do Pinyons and Pines.
Yep. And sure enough.
And yeah, and that was the year that I ended up getting the hotel on the 3rd night.
Yep.
Because I was just like, didn't want to sleep in the 20 degrees when I had a 30-degree bag. Didn't want to sleep when it was 20 out.
Right.
Lindsay slept on the floor. We became friends. That was in detail in the last podcast with her. And then from that point on, I was like, all right, things are starting to align. I'm starting to figure this thing out a little bit, right? But it took me 3 years to like even get to the point of like, I can do this, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a really cool story. And now you're co-race director.
Yeah. So the next year I went back and took 11th place in it.
Wow.
Because from 21 to 22, it was like really caught the groove.
Yeah. I remember just watching your fitness and just your bike performance really go through the roof around that time.
Yeah.
Just really impressive gains on the bike.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. And then then you went out and had a really strong 2022.
That was
finish,
22.
and then did the 500.
Right.
In 23.
Yep.
Finished.
Yeah, finished with an asterisk.
With an asterisk.
So I went off course for a little ways.
Death mud related.
I mean, asterisks. Got to give credit where credit's due. There were people who didn't do that.
Yeah.
People who persevered through the death mud, and I regret. I should have gone through that mud because it was just as bad where I deviated to. So
Yeah, that's a
But
good. That's a
whatever.
good lesson for somebody like me with a lot less experience about just kind of pushing through, because you may regret not
Yeah.
doing cut, whether it be quitting or getting off course or whatever it may
And
be.
I made excuses.
Yeah.
I made an excuse. I could have gone with what I had as far as tailwind. I like inventoried my food, and I was like, this is like, I don't know how much death mud there is. And maybe it was a good decision. I don't know. That's debatable, I guess, like on food. But then I had Karen Pocock behind me texted me and said, hey, I got extra food after I deviated. She said, if you just hang out, I'll give you some of my food.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So like, I regret it. Like, it would have worked out just fine.
Yeah.
And usually things like that happen. Like,
Yeah.
if you just give yourself a little bit of space.
Little trail magic may
Absolutely.
pop up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a real thing.
So, or whatever. I would have caught up with Matt, or who knows.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's a balance between making smart decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
That aren't going to put you in danger. That's not what we're doing this for.
Right.
But also pushing yourself beyond what you think is your limits.
Yeah. That's the name of the game.
So that's different for everybody,
Yeah, definitely is.
So, we were under 18 and we couldn't buy cigarettes, and we couldn't get any hay misters to like buy us cigarettes. So we would go around to the, all the ashtrays in Green Valley and like unroll the half smoked cigarettes and take all the tobacco out.
Crap, dude.
And make our own cigarettes out of them.
That was a different Dylan.
Don't tell my mom. Sorry, Mom.
She's going to hear this. Dude, that is a Dylan I never knew.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's pretty gross.
Sounds like something my dad would do when he was a kid.
That's like secret time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a desperate teenager in the outskirts of Tucson.
Yeah. 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 So anyway, as we're talking about the challenges with Pinyons and Pines, you have some sort of an autoimmune disorder, right?
Yeah. I have been undiagnosed or misdiagnosed since I was about the condition really kind of started when I was about 20, 21. I'm 32 now. So pretty much my whole adult life. I've had just weird symptoms. It started out with something called halo nevus on my scalp, which is an area of skin that loses pigmentation. So unlike a birthmark or anything like that, where you're born with an area that has pigmentation skin issue, this developed after, I was an adult when this came on. So at that time, I went to the doctor to have it checked out, and they're like, yeah, this is an autoimmune condition. Who knows, your whole scalp could lose pigmentation, or it could stay in this one little area. But no way to tell. Nothing you can do about it. Just is what it is. Just autoimmune problem. So, I was a young guy thinking, man, I'm going to have a full head of white hair, because where it loses pigmentation, you lose color in your hair.
Yeah.
So luckily enough, it did spread a little bit. I one or two other areas on my scalp. But it never really spread post that. So that's kind of how it started. And then things kind of progressively started to get weird in other areas as the years went on. And pretty rapid, I say years, but I started to have pretty severe inflammation in my joints, specifically in my hands, in my early 20s. So that kind of followed the halo nevus pretty quickly, where anytime it was remotely cold, any cold exposure, my hands would basically lock up. So they would swell up, balloon up. My fingers would be gigantic and wouldn't be able to really make a fist. Which then sort of graduated into other areas of my body, like my shoulders, my hips, my lower back, my knees a little bit, but mainly my upper body was where it kind of, and my extremities, so my feet, my toes.
Yeah.
And I still have that to this day. The halo nevus thing didn't continue to spread, but the joint inflammation, luckily enough, hasn't gotten to a point where it's really stopped me from doing anything. But, in the 12 years that it's been sort of coming on, every year it seems to get a little bit worse. What followed that was a skin thing. So basically, when my joints would get bad, my skin in that area would break out in almost like a hives.
Okay.
And so that's relatively new. That's probably like the last 5 years that the skin followed. And then anytime my inflammation is up in any part of my body, it affects my stomach pretty bad. So I get pretty bad stomach and just inflammation in my gut. So pretty food sensitive. Pretty hard to keep food digesting properly. So I've had issues where I'll get really, really dizzy, or just I've fainted on account of maybe 4 times, just due to my stomach inflammation being so bad. It's not grabbing any nutrients from any of the food that I'm putting into my body, because everything's basically just going right through me. Which then depletes you on electrolytes and sugars and salts, necessary things to kind of keep you going.
Yeah.
Kind of a crazy story about that. One of the first times I blacked out, I was the first century ride I ever did was up along the Highway 1 from Santa Cruz up to Half Moon Bay, Northern California. Beautiful ride. And my dad and I did it together. He had done some centuries before, but it was my first century, and I basically sat on his wheel and he towed me through, and it was awesome. It was a great day. On the way back, I started to feel a little off, but not dangerously off, and we ended up stopping at a burger place right after the ride, and I basically went out right at the table in front of my dad and our friend that we rode with.
Whoa.
And it was pretty scary.
Yeah.
So the frustrating thing, and one of the hardest parts of dealing with it is, I think in the last 10 to 15 years, autoimmune has been on the rise. Autoimmune problems have been on the rise in probably the world, but I know in America, on such a rapid rate that doctors aren't really able to keep up. So it's all sort of developing before us, so I've been really frustrated with just not being able to get answers, and being in a position where I try to rely on doctors, but to no real fault of their own, they don't know what to do for me. Yeah. So I've had to experiment a lot with diet and different things to try to mitigate some of the symptoms, and it's ever evolving. I'm constantly figuring out different things about how to live with it, how to minimize it, how to continue to do all the things that I love without my autoimmune issues drastically affecting them or taking me away from being able to do the things that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, like the not being able to digest the nutrition you need. Like like that could just be such a crux it is already with people that don't have this issue, right?
Totally. Yeah, and it's something that kind of lingers in the back of my head about, going out and embarking on something like this. Obviously my health is number one priority, and I don't want to do anything that jeopardizes my safety or my health. So going into a 5 or 6 day event where I'm going to be spending a lot of time by myself, I'm very confident that I know my body well enough that I'm going to be able to manage it safely. But it's always just something in the back of your head that, hopefully my body cooperates with me, and I'm going to do everything that I know that I've learned in living with this that help me and that mitigate some of my issues. But it's definitely something that is another stressor, I guess you could say. when you embark in something like a
Yeah.
Pinyons and Pines?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and there was a point where I you know, where I we were having conversations about this, and I was kind of like saying like, hey, maybe like 100-mile gravel centuries is like your sweet spot.
Yeah.
You know,
I'll never forget you telling me that.
kind of because of this stuff, and you like seem to reject that.
Totally.
You were like, screw that.
Yeah, I remember exactly what I said, which was, yeah, no way.
We
Screw
never
that.
really debriefed from that.
No, we didn't. We didn't. We it was a pretty quick interaction when
Yeah.
we had that exchange. But yeah, part of it is, you know, I really, really do not want it to take away from my ability to do things that I want to be able to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, that became obvious because I said that, and then a couple weeks later, you were like, "I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this," and it almost sent you down a path of like, "I'm not going to let that hold me down." Right?
I think it did. Yeah, I really do think it did. Because you're absolutely right. Like, my sweet spot is, you know, 100-mile, 80-mile, 60-mile gravel efforts.
And my sweet spot's eating at McDonald's.
You are damn good at that.
You know what I mean? So yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I'm very glad that you know, our friendship is what it is, that you could say something like that. And obviously it didn't, by no means did it offend me. It really inspired me, and made me realize how badly I want to be able to accomplish things, or at least, you know, go out and have the adventure, you know, go out and be part of something like Pinyons and Pines, or, you know, someday, who knows, AZT or whatever it may be. I'm very passionate about, you know, pushing my limits and just the community of people that do hard things, you know. Like, I'm a firm believer that, you know, when you get back from something that's really difficult, whether it's Pinyons and Pines or your first century ride or whatever it may be, it changes you for forever. You know, it changes the way you think about yourself, it changes the way you think about your job, the world, all of that. It puts a lot of things in perspective for me. So yeah, I really want to be able to continue to do this stuff long into my life. You know, my dad's a huge inspiration for me. He's 61 now and can absolutely put in more miles on a bike than I can. Has accomplished things on a bike way more than I have. And we both got into cycling about the same time. You know, he wasn't a lifelong cyclist. He got into it, I think, because I got really into it in my adult life. And so, you know, we would do a lot of riding together, and you know, he's in his 60s now and can crush.
Yeah.
And absolutely. And I'm like, I want that.
yeah,
someday.
He's super inspirational.
Yeah.
And Dan, you got to come on the podcast.
Yeah. Yes.
Soon. Okay. If you're listening to this,
We'll get him on.
we'll get him on.
One way or another, we'll get him on.
Because he's got a great story.
Yeah, he does.
So
He does.
We'll hopefully let him tell that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and your story's still developing, you know?
It is.
And hopefully you can find like a sustainable middle ground between dealing with the autoimmune issues and accomplishing the things you want to accomplish, like long distance multi-day bikepacking. Right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe you're not going to be able to go out and just get top 5, right? Ever. Like, I accepted that a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I let that go a long time ago.
Yep.
I wanted to get better and I wanted to do things to test myself, but like, I knew that there was like, maybe top 5 wasn't in the cards. A few years later, maybe it is in the cards. Right. But I didn't think that a little bit ago.
Right.
Right. And then it slowly kind of gained momentum. So, and I think that happens for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and I think that in 2024, more and more young people are struggling with autoimmune related illnesses, diagnosed or undiagnosed. You know, it definitely seems like it's on the uptick for whatever reason, whether it be the diet that we've grown up on, the phthalates in our system, and all these things that are coming to light, you know, in the last 5 years or so, that are health detriments to us that have just been part of the diet, the American diet. But you know, there's plenty of people that I know that have it a lot worse than me. So, you know, I'm pretty passionate about you know, continuing to work through it, not for myself per se, but just for the the large and growing group of folks who are struggling with weird undiagnosed issues.
Yeah.
I do think that in our lifetime we will see a lot of things come to light regarding this stuff, that hopefully will bring relief to people who struggle with it. But I think we're a little ways out.
Yeah. Do you have any ways that you can, like when you go into, what do you call it, like an episode or a flare up or something, that you're able to like mitigate? Have you found ways, like Tailwind, for example, is like Tailwind work, or like a liquid drink work when you're not digesting regular food?
So,
are there any workarounds?
It's funny. I've had a, up and down relationship with Tailwind.
Yeah.
I think when I initially tried Tailwind, I was in a really bad episode of autoimmune to begin with. So I didn't have a good level playing field for Tailwind to work with my body. I think there was a lot of other things going on, and I thought that Tailwind was the reason that I was having problems.
I see. Yeah,
I've since
associated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've since given Tailwind a second shot as I'm putting in more hours on the bike recently. I've been, every single ride I'm drinking Tailwind, and water and food, kind of everything.
Yeah.
But I'm mixing in Tailwind.
Yeah.
And it has been great.
Yeah.
I've definitely learned to go back to your original question. I wouldn't say Tailwind is the answer for me. For the body part of it, for the hands part of it, the joints part of it, luckily I can say that activity, cardio is the best thing I can do, which is amazing because I'm addicted to basically every day I have to do something. I have to either run or ride. And when it's in its worst state, running or riding brings me more relief than anything else, than any anti-inflammation medicine or any steroid that a doctor has tried to give me, anything. And I think the science behind that is it just gets your body moving and the blood flowing in a way that, you can't substitute. So I feel very grateful that I can battle it with something that I truly love. And I think it's really hard for people around me in my life to understand. Like, they'll see me in a bad state and they'll be like, why the hell are you going for a run? Why are you going for an hour bike ride?
Mm-hmm.
The reality is it really does help me.
Yeah. It's counterintuitive.
It's totally counterintuitive.
Yeah, right. But it makes sense, kind of.
Yeah. For the stomach side of it, gluten is one of the most inflammatory chemical. What is gluten? Is it a chemical?
I don't know.
Whatever it is.
Sounds like a chemical.
It's super. It really contributes to inflammation. Whether you can handle gluten or not, it's going to have an inflammatory reaction in your body. So, staying away from gluten is really, really key for me to sort of mitigate some of the issues. So diet is huge. Diet is like one of the number one things that I can do to sort of mitigate issues.
Yeah. Good luck staying away from gluten on a bikepacking ride.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's impossible.
It's impossible. And
unless you have on a self-supported bikepacking ride.
Yeah. And when I'm on a bikepacking ride or even like a long day ride, like I throw down on food that is totally not a part of my regular diet. And just to, keep my body going.
Yeah.
Because I haven't found a good solution otherwise. Maybe I will someday. I don't know.
Yeah.
But staying up on hydration, hydration and nutrition, and the right nutrition and the right hydration is really, really key to mitigating some of the issues. And then, I've learned a lot about, kind of self-analyzing how I feel and what I need. I used to go way longer periods without eating and eat a lot less calories in a day than I do now. I definitely eat a more regular, regimented, I eat breakfast every day, I eat lunch every day, I eat dinner every day.
Yeah.
Because, when my body's off, if I'm not, one of the main contributing factors to every time that I've blacked out has been, you know, being pretty low on food. So it's really important that I keep feeding the machine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's scary. Like
Yeah.
putting this into a Pinyons and Pines scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
yikes.
it is. It is, I guess. You know, it's very low. Believe it or not, it's very low on my list of worries.
Yeah. Okay.
I think because, you know, I've lived with this for a long time, and I've been through ups and downs with it, and I've learned a lot about my body and about, you know, what it takes to keep going. Obviously, there is, like I said in the beginning, there is definitely an element of hopefully no weirdness happens while I'm out there.
Yeah.
But you know, it's I'm definitely more worried about you know, getting rained on in my bivvy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. It's a risk management.
Whether that's
thing.
correct or not, that's just the way my brain works. You know, it's probably ass backwards.
Yeah.
I should probably be more worried about. But you know, like I said, I think, you know, if I felt like there was a risk associated with me doing this in my current state, or, you know, let's say we were 3 days out and I was absolutely wrecked health-wise, I would have to make a really hard decision.
Yeah.
It's probably just not my year.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
I think if you can separate that this is just something hard, or this is something that you've experienced before that you know is dangerous, there's a difference there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And those lines get blurred. They've been blurred for me and others for other like not health related, but safety related.
They've been blurred with me, with you on trips.
Right.
When we've been together, when
Right.
I'm like, you know, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if this is right. I don't know if this is wrong. But you know, every time that's happened, just like with you probably, you know, you learn from that. You know, you look back on that incident or that situation, and you're like, all right, well, this is what I know happened 12 hours later. This is what I know happened 6 hours later. You know, if I was to go back and do that again, I would have handled things differently. But yeah, to that point, it's a little bit more difficult for me to judge risk with how I feel.
Yeah. So, you know, your normal everyday person would ask, why are we doing this then? Like, it doesn't really make sense. Like, why are you putting yourself in a situation where you could potentially endanger yourself? Right? Is it worth it to you?
100% to me.
Like, what are you getting out of it, you know?
I am absolutely addicted to pushing my limits with being outside and doing hard things.
Yeah.
Like I'm just addicted to it. It's like I am obsessed with everything that is endurance activity. I love the afterglow when you finish and you look back and you're like,
I'm currently in the afterglow right now, by the way.
Well-deserved afterglow. You absolutely deserve your
tomorrow.
afterglow.
I'm going to be a monster.
Yeah. I'm glad we did this today.
Angry.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be a monster.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, the afterglow it's real.
And really, like, you know, that's a huge part of it. But the perspective that being out on your bike or being out on your feet for longer periods of time than most people are comfortable with, or maybe that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
The perspective that gives me on a hard day in the office, or, you know, having to do 2 hours of yard work, or, you know, a hard situation in normal life. Like, it just changes everything. It changes the way you approach your normal life. And then it also makes you really appreciate so much. Makes you appreciate people more.
Yeah.
It makes you appreciate the things that you have, the opportunities that you have in life. And it gives you like a glimpse from a different lens on what your life is, you know, like when you're out there living off your bike for long periods of time, doing really hard things every day. It's like, damn, like I'll never look at like sitting on the couch and watching a movie and ever the same. Like, like that's just so like being comfortable is so taken for granted by most people who don't experience really difficult things when you're not comfortable for long periods of time. Like that is probably my favorite part of going and doing things that make me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it almost like corrupts things for you too. And things that you thought were fun and before aren't, they just lose their shine.
Yeah.
Right. It's done that for me for a lot of things. Like I have one central addiction and focus now, and it's achieving that state that I achieved like on the VVR.
Yeah.
Right. Like in that afterglow and that process of like going in and out of it. I have to say though, sometimes there might be some of the most humble people in the world, but I had a very unhumble moment on VVR. And it was when the two bikepackers said, "Oh, you just finished your first century and now you're going to go out and do another century right after that." Like consecutively. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you blew those people's minds.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, now that you say it that way, I didn't really think of it that way. I just thought of it as like a 23-hour effort, but like it's 2 centuries. Like I don't think I've ever gone out and just done a century. I just skipped from like 50-mile mountain bike rides.
Yeah.
But that feeling also feels pretty good.
Totally.
Like people might like the super humble people might lie, but deep down on the inside, it feels pretty cool sometimes to be able to be like, yeah, I
accomplished that.
Yeah, I accomplished that.
I'm capable of doing something that, you know, the majority of people think is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
That part of it is really, really cool.
It feels pretty good for a minute.
It does.
Yeah.
It feels good for a minute.
Yeah.
But like
but that's kind of short term and materialistic, you know. And we're back.
We're back. This is going to be the record for amount of "and we're back."
Yeah, I'm gonna have to really chop this one together.
Yeah, you're gonna have some editing to do after this.
All right. Well, you know, like, yeah, on the, I hope you're able to find the balance between safety and pushing yourself, right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of ultimately what everybody's trying to find a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're wearing a spot tracker.
I got a spot tracker. That was one of the new things that I bought specifically for this. There was 2 things mainly that I had to buy. Well, 3. Bought the Bivy, bought the spot tracker, and bought the bike computer. So yeah, I'm invested now.
So if you go down, we know where to find you.
If I go down, you know where to find me. And I'll
just wear it on your body. That's the only pro tip.
Yes. Body being pack counts, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just not on your bike.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that if you cross a river that's flash flooding, for example, and you lose your bike.
Yeah.
Or you lose your body.
Yeah.
It
stays with you. You want it to stay with you.
Absolutely.
That's the point.
Yeah. Because I used to carry mine on. Revelet made a little pouch that would hook on your seat bag.
Yeah.
Specifically for a spot tracker. They called it like the sprocket or something. And it shook around so much that all the plastic broke on it.
Yeah.
And so then I moved it to my body, and then I realized, oh, it's actually way smarter to have it on your body, on your pack.
Totally.
So that if you get disconnected from your bike for some reason, you can still be found.
Yeah, that's one of the many things that you've told me over the years that really sticks. You know, because that's a big one.
Yeah, it's like there's only a few critical safety things, right?
Yeah,
and that's one of them.
Yeah.
So, do you remember that squirrel that I flung up into the air a few days ago?
Dude, I forgot to tell you. I clipped the tail of a squirrel after we split off, after you stopped, when I was going up here on this road. Schultz. Yeah, I hit another. So that was 2 squirrels in one day. Now mine didn't fly and mine lived.
Yeah.
I clipped the tail.
Mine lived.
Yours lived.
Yeah, they both lived.
But yeah, so Dylan was riding. Squirrel jumped into his back wheel and somehow miraculously got flung into the spokes and out of the spokes in a way that it flung this thing probably 10 feet into the air. And it's like spiraling. Like we were going fast at that point too. We were going probably 20.
We split it. So it was in the middle of us.
Yeah.
And it was like frozen. And we passed it and it decided it was going to freak out while we were right next to it. Going fast.
Yeah.
15, 20 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And then I saw it move and I thought it was something attacking me. Because it was like a stick that then moved.
Right.
And then it like lunged at me and I looked down and I was like thought it was something that was like a raccoon or something lunging at me. and it went into the back wheel at that point, and then you looked back and you were like looking up in the air.
I was like, what am I seeing right now?
Because it flung up and then it landed and then it took off.
And it took off?
Because it was okay.
Like
or
nothing
at
happened.
least. So
enough to get out of there.
I hope it was okay.
Me too,
I
man.
felt pretty bad, but it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. There was nothing you could have done. And honestly, the fact that it didn't get its head into the spoke and just snap its head off instantly.
Yeah, I know.
It's a very lucky squirrel.
Wild.
Yeah, that was insane. And just the fact that, man, that was the first day I've either seen a squirrel get ran over on a bike or hit one. Well, I guess we didn't run it over. Have physical squirrel interactions.
Yeah. Twice.
I've never had one in my life until that day. So the squirrels are out and about this spring in Flagstaff.
Yeah. I saw a few squirrel tragedies on the VVR.
Oh man. R.I.P.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Only had one close call with a car too. On climbing up Jerome, from Jerome up to the Mingus. There was like that curvy road section.
Yeah.
It's like just a continuation of that road that kind of goes into Jerome.
Yep.
And lots of cars. They're all going pretty slow, but there was this one car in a van, and some like motorcycle gang dudes were passing them on the left and pushing the car over to the right because there were people coming from the other direction. It was like all happening at the same time.
Bad scenario.
And they almost clipped the handlebars. Yeah. It was, but they weren't going too fast. It wouldn't have been catastrophic. It would have been catastrophic for the bike, but I don't think I would have gotten too hurt.
Yeah.
But it was like the only like, oh my God scenario.
Yeah.
The rest of it was all right.
I'm glad it wasn't any worse. I'm glad you didn't have any other close calls. Riding, like the fact that you rode Lake Mary at night kind of freaks me out. But it's probably low traffic. So.
Way low traffic.
Yeah.
It's great. And the shoulder's huge on that thing.
It's like another lane.
Yeah. It was fine. The Lake Mary part was the least of my worries.
Good.
Yeah. I probably saw 5 cars the whole time I was on it.
Yeah.
So that wasn't bad.
Yeah.
That wasn't bad at all. So, all right, let's do rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
You ready?
Yep.
What's your favorite in-race food?
Strawberry Uncrustables.
They okay when they're warm?
They're great at any temperature. I'll eat those things frozen, full frozen.
Okay.
I'll eat them 3 days sitting in the bike bag. You can air fry them if you're at the house.
Oh my God.
You can air fry them straight
That's
from
a
frozen.
pro tip.
Yeah.
So they get like
all crispy on the
nice and
outside and gooey on the inside.
golden brown.
Yeah.
Oh,
Look that recipe up. That's a bomb one. You know me, man. I've been carrying around Uncrustables on every ride for a number of years now.
yeah.
So the only thing about them is I wish they filled me up more.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like just if you're going to use Uncrustables on a ride, bring more than you think you need.
How many, do you know the calorie count?
Those go down. The grape ones are a little bit more calorie. I think the grape ones are 250
Okay.
or 260. And
For one Uncrustable?
For one Uncrustable.
That's pretty good.
I wish they sustained you like that, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like that.
Not like a big old slice of pizza.
No, not at all.
Those are about 300 calories each.
Yeah. Yeah. The strawberry ones are a little bit less on calories.
Yeah.
But they're pretty easily packable. And yeah, that's my favorite.
You know, that's interesting because I tried those one time on an AES race, a
Yeah.
60-mile AES race, and I got sick that time too.
So it's
and I
peanut
just
butter for
put
you.
that together.
It's peanut butter.
It's got to be the peanut butter.
Because it's not the bread, it's not the jelly.
Right. That stuff goes down like water.
Yeah, you could pound that
It's
stuff
got to
all
be
day.
the peanut butter.
That's weird, man.
Yeah.
So to me, peanut butter is kind of like a hack. It's extremely calorie dense.
Yeah.
Protein. Easy enough to eat.
Yeah. I don't think it sits all right with me.
Yeah.
I do eat peanuts,
Yeah.
and they kind of screw with me digestively.
Yeah.
Like just regular roasted salted peanuts. I love them, just like I like blue cheese, and then it just destroys me.
Oh man, yeah.
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 So that, you know what? That's got to be it.
Glad we figured that out.
Yeah, for me. Thanks for that. What's your favorite post-race food?
Pizza.
Yeah?
Pizza.
What kind of toppings?
Man, I'll eat any kind of pizza, but if I had my choice, it's probably going to be pepperoni, black olive, sausage and mushroom.
Is there a pizza topping you wouldn't eat? Like
I mean, anchovies
Pineapple.
probably might. I've never tried anchovies. I'll do pineapple.
a Hawaii, you're good with a Hawaiian
yeah.
pizza?
Yeah, not my favorite.
Yeah.
Totally will eat it though. Barbecue chicken's kind of in my repertoire a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
You like that one?
Oh yeah.
It's really good.
The Route 66 from Fratelli.
Bomb.
All day with some jalapenos.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, add jalapenos. It's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just feel like, pizza after a long day on the bike is just...
Well, you know my take on that.
Yeah. Or mid-ride.
Anytime.
Yeah, it's a good hack mid-ride.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your spirit animal?
Eagle.
The eagle.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with everything that flies or flying.
Right.
Aviation nerd to the core. And what's cool about the eagle is up here in northern Arizona, you can find bald eagles.
Yeah.
You can spot them. And I had never seen one in real life till I moved here, and it was every time I've seen one, it's been a majestic setting and just super cool.
Yeah.
Like, just so cool. Yeah. Gotta go eagle.
Gotta get you a belt buckle or something.
Something.
I bet that lady who just stopped by has one.
Probably has a couple.
Yeah.
She could tell a story or two about them too, I bet.
Oh yeah.
Mechanical bull.
Yep. Mechanical bull, knife throwing.
Dime beers.
In the 70s.
Yeah.
In Flagstaff.
For some reason it was right around here, which seems like an
Yeah.
odd place for
The house right over there.
but
I don't-
awesome.
I think she might be a little turned around.
I think so.
But-
Yeah, dude.
But you don't get that if you have an indoor podcast studio. I
That's
just
so
want to point
true.
that out.
Yeah, you would be missing out on that kind of stuff.
Oh, the eagle. Yeah, my one quick note on that one. My favorite game to play with you is you're such an aviation nerd that it's while we're riding bikes. I'm like, don't look. You got 5 seconds to tell me what kind of airplane that is based off the sound it's making in the sky.
Oh yeah, I love that game. Yeah, and then I have an app that I can pull up and I can
We can confirm.
We could confirm exactly what kind of airplane's above
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
That's a
You're surprisingly accurate at that game now. Like I just was like a total like he's never gonna be able to do this joke.
Yeah.
And you were. And I was like, oh my God, that's another level, my friend.
Yeah, I've spent too much time studying airplanes.
What is your endurance superpower?
Oh man. Gosh, I feel like I'm still trying to figure that. I hope I find out what it is on Pinyons and Pines and can answer that question next time we do this. I'll be actively looking for my endurance superpower while I'm out there.
Fair enough.
But as of right now, haven't not obtained one yet.
You'll let it find you.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Fair enough. It's very humble.
Yeah.
What's your worst crash or fall?
Oh man. Gosh, I have so many bad ones. Dude,
yikes.
I have so many bad ones. The
way over here for the podcast.
Thank goodness. That was my first crash of 2024, and it was very light. And I was very thankful for the gigantic pile of pine needles that I fell into.
Yeah.
That one could have been bad, but it was actually not bad. A couple to note would be one in that happened here in Flagstaff. I was riding I think it's Arizona Trail, believe it or not. What's the really techie section that comes off of the top of Snowball?
From Aspen Corner?
Corner.
Yeah, that's
down.
Arizona Trail.
Yeah.
Yep.
Super fun downhill. It was pretty much right when I moved to Flagstaff, and the riding in Flagstaff versus the riding in Santa Cruz are night and day difference. I mean,
Yeah.
Santa Cruz is very steep, technical in its own right, but there's no real rocks. There's roots and it's more Pacific Northwest style riding. So when I moved to Flagstaff, I was just like, what is all of these rocks everywhere? This is a technicality level that I'm just not familiar with.
It's a volcano, dude.
It's a freaking volcano, and you can really tell while you're riding it.
Yeah.
So I was by myself. It was sundown. The sun was pretty dark in the trees at this point, and I think that may have contributed to the crash. But it was on a pedally section, and I was just going for just an absolute rip. I wanted to set a PR down that trail, and I think I'd only ridden it a couple times. And of course, pedaling on a section, clip a pedal, and it was a nasty clip of a pedal.
Yeah.
Ejection seat right away, right over the bars, and landed pretty hard here. You can actually still see the scar.
Oh, yeah.
So this, along with a good amount of other areas on my body, were bleeding pretty good. And instantly kind of went into got to get down mode. So I start riding down the trail and I'm bleeding bad out of this. This was bleeding bad. So I take off my shirt. So it was kind of, I think it was a shoulder season. I think it was like October. It was chilly. Was wearing a t-shirt, took off my t-shirt. I was probably halfway up the trail. Had to wrap this thing up. Did not have any, first aid gear. Had to wrap it, kind of tourniquet this wound, and kind of walk the rest of it. So by the time I got to the bottom, it was dark and cold. And, I was kind of getting a little woozy. And there wasn't really good cell service at the time.
Yeah.
So by the time I got down, there's that building at the bottom, the base.
Yeah.
Kind of sat at the base of the building, got cell service, was able to call my buddy to come pick me up. And he came and got me. By this time, all the urgent cares in town were closed. And I kind of refused to go to the emergency room at this point. So we went over to my buddy's house, and his wife is a nurse, and she stitched me up.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a particularly rough one.
Dang. Home done stitching.
Yeah.
Should have gotten the staple gun out or whatever.
I know.
Would have been hardcore, dude.
Yeah.
That's pretty hardcore that you got home done stitch.
Yeah, home done stitch, and I was very thankful for it.
Yeah. Good thing you didn't hit anything else in your head.
Yeah.
Who inspires you?
You inspire me for sure. In the world of endurance sports, you and Jess.
Yeah.
Are my go-to quick answer, just because you're some of my dearest friends and super close to me in my life, and just animals, man. And I feel like what's crazy and cool about you two is you guys have become these animals before my eyes. When I met you, you were not what you are now as far as endurance sports go.
Yeah.
And that was a mere, handful of years ago. And, to see Jess conquer Cocodona last year was an absolute inspiration.
Yeah.
Hearing her
amazing
on this podcast, that's going to be one that I keep in the queue for Pinyons. And I'm going to listen to that when I'm feeling rough.
Nice. Yeah.
Because she's just on another level. So yeah, Dana's a big inspiration. My dad's an inspiration. But yeah, you and Jess, man, you guys,
yeah.
And especially cool because I can lean on you guys for advice and learn from you guys too. So
yeah,
that's neat.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you've been the guy who has cheerleader is an understatement, but you've been the guy who's always been like, go for it. You got it. You can do it.
Yeah.
This whole time since we met. And that has meant so much because a lot of people are energy vampires and they want to take the energy from you. Right. And you're the opposite. I was trying to come up for your bio. I was trying to come up with the opposite of an energy vampire. And all I could come up with was energy cheerleader.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a better term for it. And maybe I'll figure it out one day. But you're the other side of it. You're always just and I'm like, hey, dude, I'm thinking about starting this podcast. You're like, yeah, do it. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in a lot of ways, I think I vicariously get to live these really cool things and watch, through you, watching you do all these awesome things, because what's awesome about you and what makes you super easy to cheerlead for or to support is dude, you got a really strong mind. You have the ability to set, and you said it earlier on the podcast of I'm either in or I'm out on something. And when you go in, you go in. And this podcast, what we're doing right now is a testament to that. I feel like it was not long ago at all. We were on a ride and you were like, man, I think I want to try a podcast instead of doing videos, or do a little bit of video and do podcasts as well. And I'm like, hell yeah, do it 100%.
Yeah.
And now fast forward and I'm like, here I am doing the podcast.
Yeah.
You've done 8 of these things. Yeah. You've had some amazing people on. Every single one has been entertaining through and through.
Yeah.
You're succeeding in it. So it's cool, to have somebody in your life, because so many people just talk.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be good reasons for it. They work a lot, or they have kids, or whatever it may be. They talk about things they want to do. But what's awesome is seeing somebody who has the idea and then the motivation, the drive, the knowledge, the willpower to go do it.
Yeah. A lot of people make excuses.
So many
Right.
people make excuses.
I hate excuses.
Yes,
Right.
you do.
Like, and Jessica hates excuses.
Yeah.
And we kind of live in this like ecosystem of hating people that make excuses.
Yeah.
And like, just don't say you're going to do it. We don't care if you don't do it.
Right.
Just don't say you're going to do it and then not do it.
I love that.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
And so I feel like such a self-failure when I scratch or something. I'm really hard on myself with those things when I think I'm going to do something or say, right? Because it's like there's no gray area.
Yeah.
For her especially.
Yeah.
Jessica, no scratch Turner.
Yeah. Jessica never scratched.
Never scratched Turner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm even a little bit of a failure to myself in that way, but I try to justify it in certain ways. But still, like, people that make excuses are just like, just don't try. Like, do it, prepare for it, execute it, plan for it. Right?
Yeah.
And that is kind of maybe like a very hardliner approach for some people, but like the world is so full of victims and excuses that it kind of gets so like, I'm tired of it.
It does.
You know?
And to that point, man, like people like you and Jess are more and more uncommon.
Yeah.
You know, so to have you guys as close friends, it's like, it's great. You guys make me check myself.
Yeah.
Just the other day, I was like having a long day at work. I'm like, man, I don't want to really go do this group run, but I knew I already told you two that I was doing it. You guys were going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I went and had an amazing time.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
was so thankful I went.
Same.
You know, so just thinking about like, you know, what Dylan and Jess, man, they're doing it. Like there's no question about it. Like,
yeah.
if you set out and are saying something, like you act on it.
Yeah.
You know, which is cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's I think that is, like you say, becoming a little bit more rare. In the old days, before cell phones, there was I grew up without a cell phone. I'm the last generation that grew up without a cell phone, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we had to say we were going to be somewhere at a certain time to meet up with somebody.
Right.
And you like set it like a week in advance. And you said, on Thursday, we're going to go hang out behind the bleachers at this time.
Yep.
And if you didn't show up, it sucked.
Hell yeah.
And nowadays, like, everything's so instant and communication's so frictionless.
It's so easy to bail.
That it's easy to connect, but it's also easy to bail.
Yeah. It's so easy to be, you know, to not be consistent on what you say you're going to do. Like, the easy way out is easier than ever.
Yeah. Because it's been so frictionless.
Yeah.
It's both directions.
Yes.
Right. I think that, and we're kind of trained. Jess and I are both from that same mentality, that kind of old school mentality of like, if we're going to show up at 7:00, we're going to be there 5 minutes early. Yeah. And that's just the way we operate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's been tested over the years for sure. Like, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
You know, but like, that's just the expectation. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great way to be.
Yeah. Well, I think you can overcome if you're organized and you work hard, you can overcome it. It can overcome a lot of things. Like, you don't have to be a super genius. If you're organized and you work hard, you can be successful. Like, those are the two things you can do to be successful. Yeah. And people will respect that and they'll appreciate it, and you'll move up the ladder in life or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you don't have to be like a Harvard graduate super genius. Right. If you're organized and you're on time. Yep. And you're a hard worker. Yeah. That's it.
Well, if you live your life that way, people of the same mindset, people that are the same way, are going to gravitate towards you and vice versa. Yeah. Right. So you're going to start to surround yourself of people that, you know, are consistent. They're doing things the right way. They're showing up on time. They stick to their word. Yep. And then all of a sudden you have this ecosystem around you of awesome people that do really cool things and that you can mostly rely on, right? Like, yeah, pretty sweet.
Yeah. What is it? The Dan Pena. Have you heard of Dan Pena? He's like this super controversial public speaker.
I don't think so.
Like, motivational speaker guy. Yeah. He's like wild. Some of the stuff he says on Instagram. He like yells at people in motivation. It's like really wild. But one of the things he said that I think is super important is, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Yeah. It's exactly what you're saying.
Totally.
Like, don't surround yourself with energy vampires.
No.
Surround yourself with people who you want to be like. Right. And you will become them. Yep. And you know what? Like, Dana proved that to me. Like, I wanted to get better at biking, and I'm friends with Dana for many more reasons than that. We became good friends because of other things, but biking was the one thing that connected us at the beginning. And I was like scared to go ride with him.
I remember. I remember you texting me like, dude, I'm going to go ride with Dana.
Yeah.
Like he invited me to go
6 hours. What?
Yeah.
And then it incrementally made me better, right?
Yeah, totally.
And then it's like, oh, like let me if I hang out with Tyler more, he's going to put me in more of a positive attitude because he's a positive guy.
Mm-hmm.
He just exudes positivity from the first day we met.
Yeah.
So I just think that's such an important thing to do, right? Like don't even fucking waste your time on the people that bring you down.
Right.
Like just drop them.
Yep.
Just drop them.
Yeah.
It's okay. They don't care about you either.
Exactly.
They just want to take something from you. They want to steal your energy.
Yep. And, it's difficult because, a lot of our lives, a lot of my life is I'm at work and we have to deal with things that, and people's behavior that isn't awesome. So to have, people in my personal life, like you, it's the antithesis to what I have to deal with.
Yeah. And well, thanks. And I think the goal is just, the goal would be to like, how do you slowly taper that off and increase the other half of it? Like slowly taper off the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And increase the good stuff.
Right.
And I've been doing that slowly over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like it's slow though. It's the ultimate endurance sport, right?
Totally. Well
slowly like figure out how to make the money and get the retirement and achieve your life goals and also like do it without having to like slave away in the system, Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Well, that was not a rapid fire answer.
No, it wasn't.
Next.
Yeah.
Favorite podcast? If you had to name one.
Oh man. I think you know what I have to say here, even though I've had a little bit of a rocky relationship with it of late. But I have to say Joe Rogan Experience. I remember, me and you bonded over Joe Rogan, being Joe Rogan nerds, like the first time we met.
We were early cult members.
We really were. So I have to stick with the OG, Joe Rogan.
Right on. Worst water source you've ever drank from?
There was some rocky water that we drank on, I believe it was Twin Snakes. And I believe it was before, it was that big pond right before camp. And I think it might have been even to the point where we said, no, I don't remember if we grabbed water from there or not. But I know that was like it was probably like the sketchiest water situation as far as we don't have a lot.
Yeah.
And our only option is really bad. And something tells me that I didn't drink it.
Yeah. I think I pulled a little bit out of it and then we declined.
You were like, nah.
Yeah. I would rather risk the dehydration. I think
that's the road we took, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we took the possible dehydration route.
But we had enough left to get through.
It was like be conscious of your drinking.
Yeah.
But
I would have drank out of it if I was totally out.
Yeah.
But
you have a grading system.
Yeah.
And you would have rated that water an
D, I think.
A D. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, probably a D.
Yeah. I remember like
there was cow shit in puddles next to it.
Totally. Yeah. That was kind of the kicker.
And it was like brown.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Stagnant.
Yeah.
But it was water.
It was water. And it was there if we needed it, I guess.
How about, I'm going to modify this question a little bit. One piece of advice that you'd give a fellow new bike packer.
Try to find people that have been doing it for a long time and be very nice to them and ride with them and just pick up on anything and everything that you can. Dude, like it's an intimidating thing, whether you know people who do it or you're doing it with people, no matter what, if you're getting into it, it's super intimidating. There are so many moving parts. It is such a logistical nightmare in so many different ways, which is part of the allure, I think.
Yeah. For some people. Some people, that's their favorite part.
Right. It's definitely part of the challenge, but finding people in the community that have some trips under their belt that can tell you, do that or don't do that, or just basic advice. And nowadays, man, I mean, it's getting more and more popular. Like, even since I've been doing it in the last few years, like, it is really ramping up, and there's so many good resources online. But it's definitely something that you're going to want to do some homework on. And if you can surround yourself with people that have done it or do it regularly, you're going to be off to a much better start.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Words of wisdom. That's for every new bikepacker, or every bikepacker at every level, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the same thing still.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, as a 6-year-in bikepacker,
Yeah.
I'm still scouring. When I'm at these grand parts, I'm looking, I'm talking to people. I'm saying, hey, what do you got? What is that? Is that a new harness, or how do you got your light mounted, or do you wear 2 lights, or I mean, I'm still learning that stuff too, right? Because it is like so many variables.
Yeah.
Like, how do you resupply so fast?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, how do you do that?
Right.
I still haven't cracked that nut.
Right.
You know? So, I don't know. It's a never-ending hole, man.
It's a never-ending
But it's better than work.
Oh, way better than work.
I guess. Depends on where you work.
Yeah, yeah. I could say. I prefer it over my work.
Yeah. Right on. All right, well, let's wrap this up.
All right, man.
So, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been awesome. Yeah, been cool to listen to every episode so far. I've been thoroughly enjoying listening, and to be on it is an honor. So I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Thanks for surviving this one with me.
Yeah.
We had some cool experiences.
Yes.
And good luck at Pinyons and Pines. Whatever you do, whatever happens at the end of it, showing up is the first step.
That's it.
And it's gonna be amazing, man. No matter what happens.
Yep.
So I can't wait to see you out there.
Yeah, likewise, man.
So,
Thank you.
All right, Tyler.
All right.
Thanks.
Bro.
Okay, I feel complete now.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
That was